All right, y'all. Wow. All right. Yo, what up? Real quick, I decided to do this super last minute, okay? So I'm not prepared in any fucking way, but there's a debate going on and we're going to watch it. All right? We're going to watch the debate, we're going to listen, we're going to talk about it, all right? So hells yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, there's a election going on currently in Canada. Which not a lot of people are talking about. Okay. So here, I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna put it on the screen. We're a little behind, but we're gonna watch it. We're gonna talk about it. Cause I think it's important, yo. It's important. We gotta talk about it. No one else is watching this election, so I'm like, why the fuck not? Here we go.
You've had years as NDP leader to develop a climate plan. Your platform has lots of big ideas and big targets, but almost no
So yeah, they're
details
asking a
on
question
how
to
you
a
get
Jagmeet
there.
Singh, the
Don't you
NDP
owe
leader right
Canadians
now.
a clear answer on your climate roadmap, and will you provide
I want to
one
hear
tonight?
this. I want to comment on it.
Absolutely, and I'm honored
Let's
to do
see
so.
what
We've
his
got a bold
plan is. Yeah.
That's going to take a lot of courage, that requires lots of investment, because we know how serious this crisis is. And we know what we're up against. Unlike Mr. Trudeau, we're not going to blame previous governments. We know that in power, we have the power to make a change. And if we vote for the same things, we're going to get the same results. So I want Canadians to know you have a choice. We are committed to ending.
What is your plan, sir?
We'll lay some of it out. One of it is to end fossil fuel subsidies, use that to invest in clean energy. We would make sure we prioritize investing in electrified transportation. We would invest in retrofitting homes and buildings to reduce our emissions. There is so much that we can do. We are confident we can do it. But there is a cost if we continue down the same path of conservative or liberals.
He needs to go harder on what they're going to do, because they're going to keep saying that he doesn't have a fucking plan.
Thank you. Now it is time
They're going to
for
keep
open
going
debate.
with that line. He needs to fucking hit hard with these points and be like, no, we're going to do this, 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 and
make
this.
sure everyone has a chance to be heard. Ms. Paul,
But
we're
from what he did
starting
say,
with you.
it's
Back
not
to you,
bad.
Mercedes.
Thank you. Canadians want their government to fight climate change, but they also worry about the cost for their families. And we know there will be a cost to this. Why should Canadians trust your party to see us through this?
There is a global green rush going on now to create the competitive green economy of the future. What the Greens don't want to see is Canada being left behind, because that is exactly what's happening. You know, I'm sure that the last candle maker was the person that had the market cornered on candle making. But if everyone has moved on to LED lights, then you're in trouble.
I don't know if I buy this language of Canada being left behind. I feel like Canada's going to end up being
to your
ahead
earlier question, if Denmark and Greenland, other cold countries, can end oil exploration,
although America's not
certainly
much
we
of a
can do it.
standard to hold
And if
yourself up to.
27 countries in the European Union can come together collaboratively to have an ambitious plan for the climate, then surely with leadership, we can do the same here in Canada. I know Canada can do anything that any other country can do.
Absolutely. I think we absolutely can.
If any type of energy is removed from the global market, Canadian energy, it's replaced by a bad actor country that doesn't have carbon reduction programs, it doesn't have human rights, it doesn't have engagement with Indigenous communities. Indigenous partnerships in natural resources is huge. So you said the cost. There are tens of thousands of jobs that deserve an economic recovery just as much as anyone else. There are Indigenous partnerships, economic reconciliation, and a move towards a made in Canada net zero by 2050. So let's be leaders in getting carbon emissions down and being world leaders on how we have natural resources, whether it's energy,
it's really
timber,
hard to like get a
rare earth
handle on
minerals,
this.
EVs. We can be world leaders again.
Let's talk about the cost. The cost of inaction is an entire town of Lytton being wiped out by a climate forest fire. The cost of inaction is forest fires and flooding and heat waves that mean Canadians lose their lives. The cost of not acting means a young woman I met in Hamilton who looked me in the eyes and said, what's the point of me pursuing my education? What's the point of me finding a partner or even starting a family when I don't know what type of future I'll live in, let alone my child? That's the cost of inaction. That's the cost of Mr. Trudeau, who had 6 years to do something about this.
Again,
it's not 2 years. It's not a small mandate. 6 years and he failed
We're-
you, and it
Mr.
cost
Trudeau.
Again,
all
get
of
him.
us.
Mr. Trudeau.
Hit him
When
below
we
the
talk
belt.
about a climate crisis, we have to deal in facts. And one of the facts I need to correct right now that everyone is laid into is we have not missed any of our targets. We are on track to exceeding our targets. And it's important
are you
that we are
talking
on
about,
facts.
Trudeau?
Secondly, I do
My
have a
friend,
question
that
for
makes
Mr.
no
Singh.
sense at
We
all.
need to
Canada's
talk about
not
science.
doing that
We need
good,
to talk about
actually, when it comes
experts.
to
We
carbon
agree on that,
emissions.
you and I both. So how is it that the experts that have rated our plan on climate to be an A have rated your plan to be an
Who are these
F?
experts?
I
The
rate your
experts?
your
The
track
experts?
record an F,
No,
Mr.
no, no,
Trudeau.
no, no.
You've
No,
had
not
6
you.
years.
You don't get to rate.
I
People
rate.
know.
What are
Why
these
did you-
experts he's
Excellent.
appealing
Why
to?
did the experts give you an
You're
F
talking
on
about
your
the
climate
future.
plan?
Mr. Singh
Let's
respond,
talk about
Mr.
right now.
Trudeau.
Let me respond to this. Let's
did they
talk.
give you
You're
an F?
talking about the
hear it.
future.
Get
Let's
him.
talk about right now. You had 6 years,
Why did
and
you
you've got
get
the. Let me
an
finish.
F
Let me
on
finish.
climate?
He should answer
You've got
that.
the
I
worst
mean,
track record in
people
all
are gonna
the
wanna
G7
know.
after 6 years. How can
Mr.
people
Singh,
trust you?
why
How can
didn't
people
you
have
put
confidence
forward
Trudeau,
an
hold on,
ambitious
someone that is
all right,
fearless?
Come
Mr.
on.
Singh,
He didn't
Mr. Trudeau,
answer.
Jack,
then
me-
Ms.
do it.
Paul, then
Like,
Mr. Blanchet.
this-
Mr.
dude,
Trudeau.
fucking.
Time's
Okay,
up.
this is the
No,
problem.
Hold on, Ms. Paul.
He's too
Mr.
concerned
Singh,
with attacking
thank you very
Trudeau
much,
that he
Mr.
doesn't want to
Trudeau.
like lay out his
He cannot
plan.
explain
He doesn't want to
why
explain like
his-
this
his
looks
plan
bad.
You've got a
is
strong
being
plan.
This
panned
looks
by
bad.
experts.
Okay,
Actually,
even if
politics
Trudeau
says
is in
we
the
have
wrong
best
here,
plan.
this still
We
looks
actually have
bad
a record
for
standard.
Singh.
What
Mr. Singh.
Mercedes' question was, how do we make sure it's affordable? We brought in a price on pollution across the country that puts more money back in the pockets in the provinces where it had to be imposed because
Curl.
conservative politicians fought against it every step of the way.
Ms.
And
Paul,
exempts the biggest
Ms.
polluters.
Paul,
With the greatest of respect, I think the 5 PhDs in our shadow cabinet who put together our green recovery policy would disagree with you, with the experts. But I do want to say more generally that, again, this is getting us nowhere. We have got to be able
I don't know
to
what
come
these
together
experts that
across
he's
party
talking about
lines,
are.
not only to face the existential crisis.
Do they
that
mean
Mr.
F
Singh
in
described,
economy?
but
Like the
also
economy will go to
seize the
shit
greatest
if we
economic
go super
opportunity
green?
that Canada has seen within our lifetimes.
That doesn't
We are
even
being left
necessarily need to
behind.
be
And
true.
if the United States can do it, if the European Union can do it, I know that we can do it. It's about a change in the culture.
all right, thank you, Ms. Paul. Mr. Blanchet, did you
The
want to
clock
get
shows
in?
that I'm quite behind everybody else, and I have 12 seconds left.
Take
I
some
will
time,
disagree
sir.
with the basic statement. There's possibility to create more
All right,
wealth.
this
to
guy's
absorb
boring. I
the
don't want to hear the
virus.
French nationalist
And now,
dude
leaders,
talk.
we are moving on
I
to
don't
our
care.
next theme,
He's not gonna win.
reconciliation.
All right, what's
Now
the?
we are going to our first-time voter, Merrick
Reconciliation,
McLeod
what's
and
this
Sault Ste.
about?
Marie. He's got a question to all the leaders. Merrick, you're 18 years old. You're a first-time voter. What is your question to the leaders? Go ahead, Merrick.
Let's
the
hear it,
leaders
yeah.
are listening.
Ani Bojo. In the Ojibwe culture, trust and respect is key to any relationship. Shoot.
Oh no,
You
he
got it,
forgot his
Merrick.
question.
Keep going.
How can I trust and respect the federal government after 150 plus years of lies and abuse to my people? And as Prime Minister, what will you do to rebuild the trust between First Nations and the federal government?
Thank you, Merrick. Leaders, you've heard the question. How do you respond to Merrick? Mr. Trudeau, you start this round.
Thank you, Merrick, for your question.
I don't know
You're
specifically what he's
absolutely
referring
right.
to, but let's.
Over the past 150 years, Canada has failed in its relationship with Indigenous peoples.
Oh, right, okay,
People who
yeah.
we should be working with and shared stewardship of the land.
Canada
working
is
with
really
in
not based on
partnership,
that, yeah.
As we draw from the bounty and the beauty of this land to build a better future for all. That is why over the past 6 years, we have stepped up
Yeah,
on
what
the
up,
path
Jay
of
Trudeau?
reconciliation. We have ended boil water advisories in 109 different communities. We have made sure that tens of thousands of young people get to go to school in better classrooms. We continue to move forward on fighting fighting for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and ensuring a true partnership as we move forward.
You
in
know,
respect.
Justin
Blanchet.
Trudeau really shouldn't be talking
question
about
is
all
quite
the stuff
moving.
that we've done.
I would say
He
that
should be talking about what they're gonna do
no
next,
one
like, because that's the biggest criticism
is
against him is that he's
entitled
done
to tell any
nothing
nation
and he's not
what to
doing
do
anything. Yeah, fuck the
lies
French
as
nationalists, dude. I
such.
don't care.
Either
I don't care.
or
I don't
should
care. I
the
don't care what the
tells
Bloc
therefore
Québécois
you
is gonna do.
Provide clean water.
So much for
They're not
going
gonna
to
do anything.
And I understand.
Neither is the
that
Green Party,
coming
honestly.
From a diaspora,
Actually, no, I wanna hear her
Justice
answer.
delayed is justice denied. And coming from a diaspora myself where we have been robbed of our culture, of our languages, of our history, I have no idea where my ancestors were born or where they're buried. I completely understand how important this is and how frustrating it is not to have seen the action. I am tired of being up on these stages without Indigenous leadership here to speak for itself. Jody Wilson-Raybould, Mumalak Kalak, I'm thinking of you right now. And when Ms. Kakak said that without action, that the Parliament would be hollow, she was right. So Indigenous sovereignty, self-determination, nation-to-nation engagement, that is my commitment.
Mr. O'Toole.
Self-determination.
Mr. McLeod, thank you for the question. And the way you phrased it is so important.
Right.
Reconciliation is about trust and respect and restoring it after a century and a half of a federal government failing. That's why, as opposition leader, my first question when I rose in the House of Commons was on a call to action on reconciliation with respect to Indigenous health. We need to build partnerships. We need to restore trust. And that trust is eroded when you make commitments on safe drinking water on reserve, when you make commitments on the calls to action in the Truth and Reconciliation Report and have no plan to fulfill them. So I want to build partnerships and have Indigenous leaders have governance over the federal government finally delivering on our commitment to Indigenous peoples.
Mr. Singh.
That sounds like a nothing
Thank you much,
answer
Merrick.
to me.
Thank you for your question.
Let's hear what's
How to restore trust. How do you
Let's hear
restore
this.
trust when Indigenous communities suffer
Come on, have a good
injustice,
answer.
and it continues in an unbroken line to this very day? How do you restore trust when you've got a prime minister that takes a knee one day and then takes Indigenous kids to court the next? And how do you restore trust in a country as wealthy as ours, a G7 nation in the 21st century that still does not provide clean drinking water to every single Indigenous nation? It starts by
He talks too
actually
slow,
walking the
yo.
path
Like
of reconciliation,
he needs to
not
get.
with
He
the
needs to
empty words,
say
but
more
real
with less
action,
words.
Clean water, nation to nation, and respect.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Singh. Merrick.
He's
did the
worse than
leaders
Bernie
answer your
Sanders on
question?
on this shit. Like he can't like.
Yeah.
I like him.
All
He's a
right.
good dude,
Thank
but
you
like
very
he
much.
can't like
Miigwech.
get all the information out. He's not great
Messrs.
rhetorically.
Blanchet and O'Toole, it is your
He
turn
need
to
he
debate
needs
now.
some he needs some rhetorical.
You've promised more money
practice,
to
you know.
search for unmarked graves.
Needs to
but
watch
so
Vosh.
much more needs to be done to achieve meaningful reconciliation. Mr. Blanchet, you begin. Tell me, how are you better positioned than Mr. O'Toole?
I want to hear like a
to
list of
restore
shit, not just
justice?
we'll help
I'm
them with
not better
clean
positioned
drinking water.
than
Like that
Mr.
should be a
O'Toole,
given.
because I
What
believe
else?
that this is a
Reparations?
relationship between nations, and you represent a nation. I feel I represent another one, and we are discussing with a lot of other nations. But
Let's
I
talk
will
like
remind
multiple
everybody
solutions here,
that
all right?
On the last day of the last session, we
Let's not be like America.
had a motion adopted.
Let's give 'em some
unanimously by the
reservations and let 'em
Parliament, and
rot
this motion was
for over the
precisely
decades, just like,
saying what we had been told to carry.
Hey,
by
hey, you
the
can
First
make a
Nation
casino
leaders,
and make
we
some
had it
money.
Adopted. This might be the way to do it. Many times the Bloc Québécois said, even if we don't agree with everything, that we would share our seats and our voices in the Parliament with the First Nations in order to have them.
I do agree.
being
They probably
heard
need to do
by
that.
The whole country.
They probably should. Like
After
the
tragic
indigenous people need
finding of
like a
graves in
voice
Kamloops,
in
Calais, and
the
other
Canadian
former
Parliament.
residential school sites. We offered to work in a bipartisan fashion
That
on
was-
calls to action 71 to 76.
Yeah.
Those are related to
I
former
still don't take
residential
the
school
French
sites.
nationalists all
And we
that
need to
seriously.
act faster. I know Mr. Trudeau cares a great deal about reconciliation. I know we all do. But this is
I'm sure we
an
all
issue where
do.
we have
I'm
to
sure
act.
everyone in your party
We
does
can
as
no
well, right?
longer say that we recognize the calls to action. We need a plan to achieve them. And what I'm proposing
What's your
is a
plan?
plan that builds partnerships, that builds governance, that has Indigenous leaders, incredible ones like Jody Wilson-Raybould, to allow us to actually hold ourselves to account.
What do they
All-
what do these
all
indigenous
parties,
leaders
all
get to
future
do?
governments.
Do they have
This is
power in the
biggest
government?
scar in the history of Canada. And we have to tackle it not just with good intentions, but with a good plan to deliver for all Indigenous people.
Mr.
So
Blanchet,
give them a
must say that
voice.
the
Let
Prime
them.
Minister has
I actually agree with more with the fucking
Gouverneur
French
Général,
nationalists,
I don't know how
dude.
to translate that, who speaks Inuktitut, which is great, but does not speak French.
Because I
Still,
feel like what O'Toole is
he
saying is
does
just a bunch of
not
nothing.
agree with the idea of acknowledging, recognizing First Nation languages as official languages in his country.
All right, we will leave that segment there. Ms. Paul, Mr.
Yeah, maybe
Singh,
the
Mr.
maybe the
Trudeau,
Bloc
you're
Québécois
up.
is more based
Tell
on
me,
this
what
issue.
is
I don't
your
know.
plan to end the ongoing disproportionate violence against Indigenous women and girls? Ms. Paul.
The first thing is to make space for Indigenous leadership because, we have done all these things and made all these promises. We know what needs to be done. The recommendations are there in the calls for justice and the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls report, and yet we still don't have the action. And so, as I said before, it should be Jody up here answering that question. It should be Mumala Kakak up here answering that question. We need to make the space for Indigenous leadership to guide this process, and above all, we need to make this a priority. All that is left now is political will.
But that is exactly what we have been doing, Ms. Paul. When we called the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls after years of governments avoiding doing that, we ensured that we brought the truth forward. And then we worked with Indigenous leaders groups, Indigenous women's groups to co-develop
See,
the
again,
action plan that we are
I
now
hate it.
fully
All Trudeau
funding so we can
does
get
is just say,
justice
we did
for the
this, we did that.
victims,
He sounds like
healing
Trump.
for the families, and put an end
We
to
we
this
did the
ongoing
we
national
made the
tragedy.
most
It will
amazing
take a
deals.
lot of work
We
by
did
all of us,
everything.
but we are
We did
walking this
we had the
road
best
in
COVID
partnership
plan.
because
We had the
know
best
it needs to
everything.
be done, and there is
And it's like-
much more to do.
Mr.
Then
Trudeau,
talk about the
sadly, and
much
this-
more
I
to
don't take any
do.
pleasure in this. The calls
Talk
for
about
justice
your
are out there,
plan.
and you haven't acted on them. And I meant it when I said you can't take a knee one day if you're going to take Indigenous kids to court the next. That's not leadership.
Mr. Singh,
That's
you
not going to
love
make things
that
better.
line about taking Indigenous
not a
kids to
line.
court.
You
It's
are.
actually not true. We have
Trudeau,
committed to
how can you
compensating
say that?
those
You can't- you
kids
can't
who went
say
through
that.
that.
Listen,
and what's
seriously,
more
you can't
than
say
that, this is
Indigenous
important,
kids to
Mr.
court.
Singh.
I don't know anything
when
about
you
this.
talk when you're taking them to court.
When you talk
There are
Trudeau is a
kids
pretty
out
boy
there
with a
that
mic,
fought
pretty
by you in
much.
court.
Leaders,
You
I
can't
would
say that.
actually remind you the question is
that.
about violence
Yes.
against Indigenous women and girls. Let me recenter you on
Oof,
that.
misogynists. They're all fucking
And Ms.
misogynists.
Pearl, I will say again, I said this last night in the French debate, this is why we need more diversity in politics. This
Damn.
is why we need
Oof.
people who are most directly impacted
They're
by
getting
issues
woke
to be able to
scolded,
speak
yo.
for themselves, because we are drifting off into things. We have only dedicated 2 minutes to talking about how we are going to bring true justice
This
to
is
Indigenous women in this
genuinely
country.
funny.
We just
Neither
don't
of them
have
look
it.
good.
Mr.
Like
Trudeau.
she's
On
calling
this
them
topic,
out.
and it was brought up in the earlier one, and
Like, they're
when we
just
talked about Indigenous
fighting
women,
about
I wanna
bullshit.
Talk about those kids buried in unmarked graves across the country because it was a tragedy.
I'm starting
for
to,
all
like,
Canadians,
okay.
one long known
I'm
by
still probably
Indigenous
voting
people.
for
But when
Singh,
I went to Cowessess
but,
to speak
like,
with Chief Cadmus Delorme, we not only grieved
I
those
really
kids,
wish there was
we
someone
signed
better
an
in
agreement,
charge.
a
I really
landmark
do.
agreement to keep kids at risk in their communities, to take them out of the provincial system. That is how we move forward. It took years to sign that agreement, but we got it, and we are empowering Indigenous communities
Mr.
to
Trudeau,
care for
we're
their
out
own
of
kids.
time. Mr. Singh, I'm going to give you very brief moment to respond. Briefly, we're over time.
We need to implement all the calls to justice.
I'm gonna go
We need
back
listen
to a more
Indigenous
interesting
women and
part
girls.
later
We
on,
need to make sure that they're
'cause-
safe, and we have the steps that they've laid out that we need to follow.
All right, thank you very much, leaders. Now I'm really pleased to
We need to
welcome
do
Melissa
things,
Ridgen
good
of
things for women and
APTN
girls,
News.
because that's
Melissa's
good.
going
Yeah.
to be asking
They-
you each a direct question on our
Oh,
theme
my
of
God.
reconciliation. Your first question, hi Melissa, is to Mr. Blanchette. Over to you.
Tanshe,
Madame,
thank you all
pleasure.
for being here. It's a pleasure to be here with you to ask some questions for our APTN audience. Mr. Blanchette, I'm going to start with you. You know, numerous government reports, including in Quebec, have sounded the
These debates
alarm
remind
that,
me of a bunch of
systemic
school children.
racism
Hey,
exists,
they're
from
more civil
Joyce
than the
Echaquan
American
dying as she's
ones.
taunted and by hospital
You have to
staff,
admit.
to policing,
But
the
yeah,
justice
no, that's true.
system. What will you do as Black leader to address systemic racism in your own province in Quebec and also elsewhere in Canada?
First, never underestimate the weight, the sadness of those dramas. Second, I acknowledge and I recognize the existence of systemic racism in June 2020. And then, what happened? It became a political tool against Quebec. It became a tool to say Quebec is this and that and racist and xenophobic and all of that, instead of
Kinda is.
opening a discussion,
It kinda is.
trying to find solution.
Y'all are kinda
consulting
like,
experts,
especially
discussing with the First Nations themselves. It became this.
Especially like
white
people who
society
vote for the
against
bloc. Like they're
this
literally
other
French
one,
nationalists,
white
okay?
society. We build nothing, so the words became toxic. I'm
What are you going to do?
Absolutely
Where
open
do
to
we
the
go from
idea
here, then?
of discussing all of that.
A lot of the people that
on a
vote for
quiet
the bloc
stage
anyway
without
are.
this
I don't know where this dude
aggressivity,
stands. I don't know if this dude is
debate has
racist.
become.
All right, Mr. Blanchet, we have to move on. Your next question, Melissa.
But
This question
yes,
for you, Ms.
Quebec
Paul.
is for the
You know,
French,
Canada has
and
more
it should
children
be
in
its
government
own
custody right now
ethno-state
than at the height
nation.
of residential schools.
Motherfuckers.
New legislation, child welfare legislation, actually takes the onus on and puts it on the First Nations communities to bring their kids back.
I don't know if JF would
cleaning up
vote
the
for
mess
that
that
dude or
Canada's
not.
created, essentially. And those children are going to have to be brought back to all of those same problems.
Why are they
that still
bothering
exist
with
that
like
were
the Green Party and the
grounds for
Bloc? Can we just hear
apprehension?
from the three
What
main
would you do
parties?
in the House of Commons to make sure
I just
that
want to hear
poverty and
O'Toole,
trauma
Singh,
issues
and
are
Trudeau
addressed?
argue.
Thank you very much for that question. And absolutely, we mentioned that not that long ago in one of our statements that the residential school system had been replaced by children in care, and that this was just perpetuating the legacy of trauma. It really comes back to what I said before, which is that the Indigenous leadership is there. It is ready to guide all of these processes. We have all of the recommendations we need. What we are missing is political will. What we are missing is those who have been in power for a very long time, making space for new voices and diverse voices. I actually had to pull my jaw up, which just dropped, when I heard what Mr. Blanchet said. I invited Mr. Blanchet to get educated about systemic discrimination. I extend that invitation again. I would be happy to educate him.
Damn.
It's nice to want to educate
This
me.
is my time, sir.
It is.
Thank you.
So nice time to insult people.
That was not an insult. It was an invitation to educate yourself.
This is leader direct questions.
There's
Melissa,
I mean-
Zorn,
some
Mr.
decency
Blanchet.
in
Hey,
this
at
even.
least she's not just telling him to
I'm
go
5
educate
minutes
himself.
behind
She's
everybody
willing
else.
to
There
do
should
it.
be
You know,
some
she's
Blanchet,
willing
you've
to
had every
educate him.
opportunity to
It's your
jump in an open
responsibility,
debate.
not mine, but some things
And
cannot
I
be
am
said.
fulfilling my responsibility, sir. Melissa, we're going to keep moving on.
Is
Your
it my
next
turn?
question.
Yeah, I
It is
don't
your
know
turn.
how
Thank you.
racist this dude
Mr.
is or
Trudeau, this is
isn't.
for you. You know, your Liberal government has turned
I
Indian
haven't looked
affairs
into
into
him,
two
although
separate, massive bureaucracies that eat up large
he is
portions
the leader of
funding
the
that we'll never
Bloc
see
Party,
it
so-
onto reserve. It doesn't leave the bureaucracy. You know, you've promised clean drinking water, but billions of dollars later, that's not happened. Many still do not have clean drinking water. You know, Canadians and Indigenous
True.
people are
Damn.
losing patience with the lack of results from all of this spending. So I guess the question is, why would they believe you this a third term that they would get results and you would be accountable for all that spending?
One of the enemies of progressive politics, Melissa, is cynicism. Is discounting the hard work that millions of people have been involved in over the past years. And yes, there's always more to do. Progressives always know there's more to do. But when we came into office, there were 105 long-term boil water advisories. We lifted 109 of them, and for each of the ones that are remaining, we have a project lead, a project team, and an action plan, and we're going to lift those all. There are tens of thousands of kids across this country, Indigenous kids, who've started the school year in new schools or refurbished schools.
Okay,
We
good,
have
you've
moved
done
forward
some
on
good, but,
selling
like-
more agreements and more land claims and more partnerships than any other government over the years. We continue to work in partnership and respect and invest more money in Indigenous communities than any previous
Thank
government.
you.
And no,
Thank
we're
you,
not
Mr.
done yet.
Trudeau.
We have more
I
to
think
do.
the money, I don't think anybody's questioning the money spent. I think that they're questioning the results for the money that's spent. My next question is to you, Mr.
Damn.
Singh. You know, federal forces, including the RCMP and the Department
Trudeau
of Fisheries and
is
Oceans, have been
really-
used throughout Canada's history to prevent First Nations from exercising their treaty rights to fish.
He's
and to
really
hunt,
looking
and to
bad in
defend
all
land and
this.
water. This
He's
is
really
happening
not
right
making.
now
He
on both
fucked
coasts,
up by
including under
calling
the
this
NDP party
election.
in British Columbia with regards
He is
to
an
fishing and
idiot
logging.
for
So my
calling
question
this
would be to
election.
you, as Prime Minister, what would you do to ensure
Canadian
Indigenous
here on
rights and
voting
title are
NDP
finally
base,
respected in this
comrade. Hell yeah,
I really appreciate the
welcome.
question. First of all, we need to respect Indigenous treaty land and rights. That's a fundamental step towards walking the path of reconciliation in a real meaningful way. But you mentioned the RCMP, and I got to talk about the really sad reality that there's been violence, heavy-handed violence against Indigenous communities, against peaceful protesters, and I have long called for reform of policing. When I was in the provincial level, I fought against carting. I've continued to use every platform I have to say we've got to stop the use of force. We've got to overview it. We've got to change the RCMP's mandate. And that's something we can do at the federal level. That's something that Mr. Trudeau said he would do and yet has yet to do. And it's something I'm committed to making sure happens.
See,
Mr.
when
O'Toole,
Singh
my
gets
question-
to
next
give a
question is
good
for you.
answer,
You
he's
voted
really
against the UN
based.
Declaration on
He
the
is
rights of Indigenous
based.
people that
He
would
is.
share decision-making power with
That's why I'm
Indigenous
voting
people
for him.
over what happens on their land. And you also want to criminalize Indigenous dissent that's expressed through blockades or protests. So the question is, if you're Prime Minister,
I just think
how
he needs
could
some,
Canada
like,
build
a boost in
respectful
his rhetorical
nation-to-nation
skills.
relationship with Indigenous people?
Thank you, Ms. Ridgen. And this goes very similar to Mr. McLeod's question on trust and respect. I want to build those partnerships. And that's why our only concern with the United Nations Declaration was how free and prior informed consent was defined so that it didn't stop partnerships from being formed. I'm really glad to say one of the early leaders behind the UN Declaration, Chief Willie Littlechild, has agreed to serve as a special counsel to me on the implementation of that to make sure that there are partnerships and opportunities. What I want to do as Prime Minister is build that type of nation-to-nation dialogue and partnership so that the next generation has intergenerational wealth and opportunity transfer, not trauma. And building that trust will be core to me. It's why, as I said, my first question was on reconciliation. We have to make progress.
All right, thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Now we move on to open debate. A reminder that
that-
Melissa will be here to keep the leaders on
That
theme.
just
I
sounded
will
like
be
another
here to do my
nothing
best to
answer.
keep you on time, and all of you have an opportunity
I don't trust a
to jump
goddamn
in
word O'Toole
after
says,
Mr.
all
Trudeau
right?
begins with a
Especially
question from
when
Melissa.
Okay, I think if
the
there's
point
one
has
thing
been
that
made so
Canadians and
far
Indigenous
multiple
people can all
times.
agree upon,
His
it is that this
party
Indian Act system
is
working
not
for anybody.
nearly as
How would you
progressive as
dismantle
he
this broken
pretends to be.
top-down system, and what would you replace it with that would ensure that Canada still is
So,
living up
like,
to its constitutional obligations to Indigenous people?
I don't know
First of
how
all,
he
we are
expects to
looking
get
forward
them
to
in
dismantling
line,
the
and
Indian
or how
Act.
anyone
It is a
expects
commitment
that
of
to
ours,
even
but
happen.
it is not something that Ottawa gets to decide. And what replaces the Indian Act will vary from community to community as we live up to our obligations. And that's why over the years, as we've moved towards self-government, we have accompanied communities, some who want to start with health, some who want to start with education, some who want to start with economic development. Every community, every
O'Toole
nation
is a tool.
across
He
this
just
country
virtue
gets to help
signals.
define what its path
But,
is forward.
like,
We will be there to listen,
says
to
nothing. He
partner,
doesn't
to
really
build
have
a better
much
future
of a plan.
every step of the way.
The way to go forward is to listen to leaders.
Like,
And
neither does
Mr.
Trudeau,
ignored
though.
one that he had in his own cabinet, in Jody Wilson-Raybould. That was a huge lost opportunity. We've been speaking to people with how we can accelerate treaty resolution. There are some treaty negotiations, Ms. Richin, that have been going on, as you probably know, for decades. We need to solve it, and we need to work with Indigenous leaders. There's incredible Indigenous leaders in nonprofits, in the private sector, in industry, in academia. We need to use that governance capacity to finalize treaties and build partnerships. Absolutely. Because the best way forward is success for Indigenous peoples alongside.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I also think they should be brought into the
I think absolutely
government.
the solution has to be Indigenous-led, and I think that's the starting point. And for a long time, we've seen that there's been a top-down approach that has to change. It has to be Indigenous people at the table. But I want to talk about the impacts, so just we understand how severe this is, how the Indian Act is creating injustice and perpetuating injustice. I spoke to B, who's a young woman, a young girl who lives in Niskandiga, and she told me in her own voice, she said, "I'm a 12-year-old girl, and I'm fighting for clean drinking water. How does that make any sense?" Those words haunt me to this day. I think about what 12-year-olds do, and they certainly aren't fighting for clean drinking water. That is a legacy. That is the impact of the Indian Act.
I want to go back to what Mr. O'Toole has been saying, because he's very able at saying all the right things, but there are countless examples of him actually not living up to his words. We've seen him on a number of times during this campaign, but on Indigenous issues specifically. He says we need to listen to Indigenous peoples. Well, he proposed that he would raise the flags that are at half-mast for the kids in unmarked graves in residential schools. And he didn't talk to or listen to any Indigenous leaders when he made that decision. And that's something that is important and symbolic, but wouldn't cost a cent. How do we believe
Boo, bring
that
up
he
a
was
random
able to
person to make a
actually
point.
make
I don't know.
that
He's appealing to people's
Paul and Mr. Blanchet
empathy.
A chance to jump in. We haven't heard from them yet. Time permitting, I'll come back to you, Mr. O'Toole.
A 12-year-old girl unable to find clean drinking water in Canada
I really
is
just
kind
want
of
to try
serious.
to recenter our conversation on Indigenous peoples and what we are going to do to fulfill the many unfulfilled promises and commitments.
I love how
that
Trudeau is really
and I would
like
say perhaps to pick up on
making
what has been
he's
said,
making
that it
both
seems all too
O'Toole and
often
himself
that,
look bad.
reconciliation is
because
treated
a lot
like
of his
buffet.
criticisms
It
of
opts in for
O'Toole
this,
are
pick this,
landing,
pick this plate, but not
but
the
he
other one.
also looks
And
like
that applies to what we've seen,
a
with
petulant
Mr.
child
Trudeau and the Liberals.
throughout the
You can't on
entire
one hand
thing.
say
So
reconciliation and then go and not allow
he's
kind of
single-handedly paving the way for Singh to just kind of dominate.
Reconciliation and then take Indigenous peoples to court. But Mr. Singh, you also can't say reconciliation and then support the NDP government.
I think
putting
this lady's
pipelines
doing
through Indigenous
decently as
territories,
well,
or support
but
Line 5 after the Anishinaabe made it very clear that they did not support that project.
Ms. Paul, I'm going to allow Mr. Blanchet to get in. He's been signaling.
I don't really
We'll
view
come back to
her
the
as
two of
much
you.
of a
Mr. Blanchet.
contender
First
because she's
Nations and
not
Quebec have
the
something in
Green
common.
Party's not going
They
to
are
win.
binded by a document they never signed. And any relationship between nations
I mean,
should be
now
dealt with.
see, here's the
freely
thing, though.
Signed treaties or agreements or something. The
Here's the thing. I'll talk over this guy. So the thing is, and this is one of the biggest differences between Canadian and American electoral politics, and this is why my approach to Canadian politics is going to be different. See, with America, when you have to choose between the lesser of two evils, you only have two choices, really. The third parties are completely unviable. Here, third parties are actually viable. They can actually win.
And I think if you love
So
your country, you can dig deep to make it better. So as Prime Minister,
we can
on the
actually
National Day of
lose a couple
Reconciliation on
elections,
September 30th, I will
and
raise the flag
if we
with
ended
a
up losing a
commitment
couple to the
to move forward on
Conservatives,
calls to
it
action.
wouldn't be the
Mr.
worst
Trudeau
thing in the
promises
world,
things, doesn't deliver, and then when people
Because if we could
protested
build
him,
up
he mocked them.
the
That is
NDP
not how
party
you should
while
relate to
tearing
you
down the
empower your
Liberal
country
Party,
as you strive
convert
to
more
be better.
people.
Mr. O'Toole, Mr. Singh, briefly.
I think
That
Mr.
could,
Trudeau may care. I think he cares. But the reality is that he's
That could
often
have
done lot of
a
things to
good
show and
long-term
hasn't backed those
effect.
up with real action. And the harm is that Indigenous people continue to suffer, and that's what I want to stop. I want to stop the suffering and lift up Indigenous people by being
5
allies.
seconds, Mr.
working
Trudeau,
with
then we
them.
got to go. Mr. Trudeau, 5 seconds.
Unfortunately, the cynicism that Mr. Singh is showing on saying we did nothing is harming reconciliation and the path we're moving forward. We have lots more to do, and we
He's
are.
saying we're not doing enough.
Thank you, Melissa.
Marcy.
Marcy.
And now it is time for our fourth theme for the night.
See, we need to be
affordability.
pulling in this direction, calling this out like, hey, guys, we're not doing enough.
It's
We're
time now to
not
bring
doing
in
enough.
Janet
We need
Falla.
to do
she
more.
is a senior working part-time in Burlington, Ontario.
We need to hammer
Good
away
evening,
at this
Janet.
point.
Please tell us what your question is to the leaders.
Because you know what? Odds
My
are
question is this, at
the
my age,
NDPs won't
I
do
never
enough either, but
imagined
they'll
that
do
I would
more.
have to keep on working,
Or
but I have to afford
the
to live
idea
where I
of
do.
them doing
So
more
I'd
will
like
at
to
least
know, when they become prime minister,
um,
what will they do to help us seniors survive?
Thank you, Janet.
Good question.
Leaders, you've heard Janet's question. We're starting with you, Mr. Blanchette.
Merci, madame.
of course, always with him,
For many months now, the Bloc Québécois has demanded for the government to increase the amount of money being provided on a monthly basis to our elders. It's nowhere in the Conservatives program, and in the Liberals program, it starts at 75, nothing below 75 for this pension. I'm not sure about the word in English. It has to be done. Those people are those who suffered the most from the pandemic. Their power to buy things was reduced.
Trudeau gives promises and does
alone
nothing.
more than
Quebec
never
Claws are like conservatives.
Was
The PPC
made
are Nazis,
worse.
and
the stress,
the
anxiety
Green
to
Party and
live with
NDP
is
are the only
terrible.
good options.
We
Yeah,
want
the Green
something to be
Party is
done,
kind of
and it
based on a
has
lot
to
of
start
issues,
with
but
a
like
monthly check.
they're
Seriously
far less
increased.
viable than
Thank
the
you, Mr. Blanchette,
NDPs.
Mr. O'Toole.
And I think if we could empower the NDP party, we could make people realize they have more options, and then maybe we could get the Green Party in at some point as well.
Recovery plan, our plan
after.
to give you a break, we're going to
But
double
in order to
Canada
get
Workers'
people
Benefit.
to
there are many seniors
break away
like
from
you
the
having to
dichotomy,
work to keep
the
up with
false
the cost of
dichotomy,
living. We're
because in
gonna
a lot of
double
people's
that
minds
for
it's
you
still
to give you a
conservative
break.
liberal.
We're going to get bills down for
In order
internet,
to
for
get them-
cellular phone. We're going to get grocery bills
Yeah,
down.
yeah, I'm sure you're
That
gonna
is
do
our
that.
plan and
I'm
our
sure- I'm
commitment.
sure,
And
I'm
in
sure.
December, we're going to give you a break with the GST holiday and help bricks and mortar stores in the process. Mr. Trudeau
This
is
shit
borrowing
is
every
like-
day $424
This is the kind of shit that
million,
conservatives
and he's
do to
causing
be
an
like, oh, look,
inflation
we're going to
crisis.
save you money
We
here and
have
now.
to secure our
And what are
future,
they going to be
and
cutting
that's
for
our
that?
commitment to you.
It's
Thank
not.
you, Mr. O'Toole. Mr.
It's
Trudeau.
not going to solve
Ms.
problems.
Fallish, thank you so much for your question. We know that seniors have been deeply affected by this pandemic, the isolation, the extra costs, which is why we stepped up with a one-time support so you could help get through this pandemic. But we
one-time
need
support.
longer-term
Where's the
supports. One
UBI?
of the first things we did was increase the guaranteed
UBI.
income supplement for our most vulnerable
UBI.
single seniors when we first got elected.
UBI.
We're doing that again in our proposal in this election. We're also moving forward with increasing the OAS for all seniors over 75 because we recognize that the costs continue to increase as you get older and continue to want to live at home. We're giving you more supports so you can stay at home safely and make those renovations importantly. We will continue to have your backs as we have through this pandemic and into the future.
UBI is
Mr.
like asking
Trudeau,
for the
Mr.
second
Singh.
coming from these fools.
I want to thank you so much for your question. And one of the things that you mentioned is that you didn't think you would have
You could
to
probably
keep on
get
working.
Singh on board with
And
it.
I don't think our seniors should have to work. If seniors want
True.
to contribute by working, that's
I don't think
absolutely
anyone
their
should
right.
have to work,
But you shouldn't
but
have had
we're
to
not there
work.
yet.
And in a country as rich as ours, we should make sure our seniors are able to retire with dignity.
True.
You've got the supports necessary to live a life of dignity. So what we're proposing to do is put in place a guaranteed income for seniors so they can live with dignity and not have to worry about paying the bills. That's a starting point. What we've seen so far is that Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole both are going to either cut the help that you receive or put the burden back on people like you. We believe that the ultra-rich should pay their fair share for once.
True.
Invest in you, invest in families, invest in people.
Thank you,
Based.
Mr. Singh. Ms. Paul.
Raise taxes on the
Thank you
rich.
very, very
This is
much
why we
for-
need the
for
NDPs
question.
in
And
power.
as
all right.
someone who comes from a family where
Because
my
even if-
grandma
look, even
and
if they don't
grandfather
do
had
that,
to work until actually
if they get the
were kicked
people
out
riled up and
of
be like,
working
yes,
because they needed
make
to
the
keep
rich pay their
working
fair
to
share, and
afford
then
the
suddenly the
basics.
NDP is getting
I
power and they
completely
don't,
understand what
then the
you're
people will
saying.
get mad.
And this is an
and,
opportunity
you
for
know,
us to learn the
start
lessons
calling
from
for that
this
shit.
pandemic and to really get
And
to the heart of
that's
things and to stop
never a
talking
bad
about the
thing.
symptoms, but get to the root causes.
These
We
are
need
various
to have,
ways that we
absolutely,
can
and it's
push
so
the
wonderful
country
to
to
see
the
the
left.
consensus building around a guaranteed livable income, so that whatever
I do
your
believe overall, no
circumstances,
matter
you can live
what
with
the
dignity.
outcome,
We need universal long-term
empowering
care.
the
That's a huge
NDP
expense.
party
It was for my
or the
family,
Green
and
Party,
we
but
need more
in the
affordable
short term,
housing.
the
Let's
NDP
get to the
party
root
is
causes.
the
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
most viable
Mr.
way
Singh and Mr.
of pushing the
Blanchet, you
country
will
to
both
the
square
left.
off now. You both talk about
In general.
affordable housing, but we know that affordability means different things to different people depending on
True.
where in the
True.
country they live. So when you talk about affordable housing,
Affordable housing.
who are
Affordable
you
housing
really
doesn't
talking
exist for
about?
me in
For the
this,
draw, Mr.
where
Singh,
I
you
live.
begin. Mr. Blanchet, you may jump in anytime.
We're talking about people who are spending right now more than half their income on housing.
Yep.
That's not affordable.
Nope.
People should not be spending so much on housing that they have no money left to pay for their groceries, to pay for their bills. And the sad reality is, since 2015 to now, the average cost of housing nationally has gone up to buy a home by $300,000. So far, the housing
What are we
crisis
gonna
has
do?
gotten worse over the past 6 years. We want to invest in housing. We want to invest to make it easier to buy your first home and to invest to make sure there's available, affordable rental homes.
Let Mr. Blanchet respond.
Could anyone tell me how to translate logement social?
Social housing.
Social housing might be a solution to another problem. People are paying, at least in Quebec, people are paying far too much for houses because the prices have increased tremendously. The idea
Social
is
housing.
to reduce the speed of that increase while helping people who cannot even afford
What does he mean by that?
decent lodging. If we build more social lodging, which price are obviously very lower,
Oh,
much
so you're
lower,
saying like,
then it will lessen the pressure on those houses who become more and more expensive. And
that's
it
your
will
Singh's
help reduce this.
response.
I wouldn't speak about an inflation crisis, but I
'Cause
would
I don't think
speak
that's a
about
bad thing.
An inflation worry, which we must
But-
have at present times. So I believe one thing might be part of the solution for the other thing when we speak about
All right, Mr. Blanchet, that's time. I'm sorry, Mr. Singh, that's time. You speak about
they don't let him
inflation,
respond.
Mr.
God damn it.
Blanchet, and that brings us to our next topic. So, Mr. O'Toole, Mr. Trudeau, and Ms. Paul, you're up. Inflation
Singh
is
takes
at
too
its
long to
highest
say
level in a
anything.
decade, and
He's
it
like
is
Bernie.
squeezing Canadians on staples
Now,
such as
look,
groceries, gas,
we
rent.
are the richest
What's your
country
message to
on the
Canadians who are
face of the
struggling
earth.
to make ends meet? For the draw, you begin,
And
Mr. O'Toole.
I would
Well,
like to
unlike
know
Mr. Trudeau,
what, you know,
I
like it's,
will care about monetary policy because we need to keep
we need
inflation
better
low.
rhetorical
There
speakers
is a
when it-
crisis
it-
hitting
when it
families,
comes
and
to
Mr. Trudeau
politicians.
seems
We don't have them.
completely oblivious to that. Bills are
Like, we
going
need
up.
good lefties
There's a
that are-
housing
that are
crisis,
good at
as we
rhetoric.
talked about, and he's making it worse with, as I said, almost $500 million of borrowing per day. There's real risks on the horizon. So we have a plan. to
See,
get
all
people
O'Toole
work,
and Trudeau
get
are doing is
people-
attacking
get
each
their
other.
bills
I really
down,
do
give
hope
them
that
a
this
break.
makes it like
Canadians
for
deserve a
me,
break
it looks
and
like
balance the
these
budget
two
over
are
the
like
course of the
a
next
couple of
decade.
fucking
That's
idiots,
exactly
like yelling
what
at
we
each
need
other,
to fight
and
against
like
Mr.
Singh
Trudeau's
comes off
inflation.
as the
Why not
most
give
like
families a break?
reasonable.
Ms. Paul.
Trying not to interrupt anyone.
Like-
You know, it's just an excellent question. And if you come to my
I hope
neighborhood
that
of Toronto
more
Centre,
Canadians,
you will
like,
see
agree
those
with,
people
like,
living
my,
in inadequate housing. You will see people paying more than
perspective on
half
this
of
debate,
their
because it
income
really
just
is,
for
like-
things like childcare. And
I don't know, I
there's
guess if
this
people already
expression,
like Trudeau,
in
they're
my
gonna
culture where you
go with
talk
whatever
about
he
soon
says. If
come.
they already like
It's the
O'Toole, they're
things
gonna,
that you
you know.
delay to tomorrow and tomorrow that should have been done today. This is soon come. Soon come is now. We have got to learn the lessons of the pandemic and make sure that we have a social safety net in place that lets everyone live with dignity. When we invest in our people, we are investing in our future, and this is the time for us to do that. It costs us not to do it.
Over the past year and a half, I made a straightforward promise to Canadians that we would have your backs. And that's what we did. During this pandemic, we were there to support people. But at the same time, we need to continue that. That's why we've put forward a $10 a day childcare proposal that will save the average family in Toronto close to $10,000 more than Mr. O'Toole's approach on childcare, which he would cancel. We also put forward a national housing plan that will invest $4 billion to work with municipalities to create 1.4 million homes.
Mr. O'Toole's
Let him respond, Mr. O'Toole. Mr. Trudeau, let Mr. O'Toole respond.
Sorry, let me just finish this. Mr. O'Toole's plan on housing gives $500 million on breaks to the wealthiest landlords and nothing for building new houses.
The housing crisis has
Is
gotten
that
worse
completely
under Mr.
untrue?
Trudeau.
You're a
And months ago, he
conservative. That's
fought
pretty
against
easy
us
to
trying
believe.
To take
I mean,
foreign non-resident money out of our housing market. We've got a plan to get rental
I don't trust
housing built.
either of you
We've
on
got a plan
housing.
to get density, 1 million new homes in the next 3 years,
With no
and to
money
give
on that
first-time home buyers
Not a cent
break
towards
by a
that.
this
longer
is-
mortgage.
guys,
Mr. Trudeau,
we
Canadians
have-
are worried. You're
we
going to be
have the
taxing their primary
opportunity in
home sale.
America.
Your
That
advisors have said
we
it.
had the
Your
douche and the
candidates
turd.
have
We
said
didn't
it.
get a third
It's on
option.
page 14 of his
Canadians,
policy book.
we
He's
have a
introducing
third
new tax
option.
on the sale of homes.
Leaders,
It's coming.
leaders, there
We
will
have
be
a
more
third
opportunity
option.
to speak about these issues. Thank you, because guess what? I'm bringing out Rosemary Barton of CBC News, and she's going to be
Guys,
asking you more
make
direct
this case to
questions
your
and opening
family
up
and
more
friends.
opportunities
The
for
two main
debate.
options are
On this
fucking
theme of
terrible. They're
affordability,
garbage.
hey, Rosie?
Hey, Shanti, thanks. And good to
We
see
don't
everybody.
need to be
Appreciate
as
you being
bad
here.
as
Let's try and get
America.
some
We have a
answers
third
this time,
option.
shall we?
Let's
Ms.
take
Paul, I'll start
advantage
with
of
you. One of
that.
the plans that you've laid out to tackle affordability is a guaranteed livable income. You mentioned it just moments ago. Give people a set amount of money to deal with their lives. There was an expert panel in British Columbia just recently
UBI.
that said that that is not the way forward, that actually is too complicated for the needs of our society, that the needs are too diverse. Why do you think this is still a policy worth pursuing?
Guaranteed livable income is a policy whose time has come. We saw at the beginning of the pandemic how many people were thrown immediately into financial crisis because our patchwork system simply isn't working. There is a growing consensus. The members of the Liberal Party voted for it at their convention. The members of the NDP party voted it at their convention. 50 senators signed a letter calling for it. The time has come to ensure that everyone has the support that they need to live in dignity in this country. The Parliamentary Budget Officer looked at guaranteed livable income. He examined the model in Ontario, and here's what he said. He said that it would lift half of the people who are in poverty now out of it, that it was affordable, and that it would not disincentivize work. This is the time for a guaranteed livable income. Let's do it together.
Based.
Thank you.
Based.
Mr. O'Toole, childcare, as you know, is a huge
Fuck
expense
O'Toole.
for
I want
families.
Singh
You would
to
scrap
respond
the
to
deals
that.
that the Liberals
Fuck.
have made with provinces, which drops fees by
I want to know if
50%
Singh is on board with
immediately
that.
and create spaces, and eventually will reduce fees to $10. Instead, you're proposing a tax credit that would reimburse just some families $6,000 a year. So what does your plan do to create spaces and lower fees? Because as you know here, it's not just about affordability, but also about access.
It's about helping all families now, not in 5 years helping some. And our plan would help lower income families with up to 75% of the cost. Our plan will also help that nurse on shift schedules that has jobs in the evening, that needs flexibility.
Why not help
What we want to do is
everybody?
help all families get ahead
But
and
if the
provide
nurse
more
can't find a
support
spot,
for the
Mr.
lower
O'Toole,
income.
what does she do? If the nurse can't find a spot, what does she
This
do with her
gives her
children?
as much flexibility as possible. If there's not one in
Fuck
her suburban
liberal
community, there
means
is no
testing.
space in 5 years under Mr. Trudeau's program. We want to give families the tools to make the best decision for the position they're in now, to have ability to help them in their circumstances. Our plan will be immediate. It will help all Canadian families.
Mr. Singh, you're promising to tackle
Wait, you didn't say
skyrocketing
all
housing
Canadian
prices. One of the
families. You
ways is
said
with that
families
20%
under certain
tax on the
income
sale
levels.
of homes to foreign buyers. 2/3 of Canadian families actually own a home already. If you're successful at cooling the housing market, that would mean that people who have invested their life savings in their homes may not have it anymore.
Oh,
They're relying
fuck
on
you.
that for their retirement. So what is more important to you? Helping younger people get access to the market?
Yes.
Or allowing older Canadians who rely on the value of their homes
Fuck
to live?
you.
It's a really fair
Fuck
question.
you. Fuck this.
And
No.
when I spoke to people, I go door to door in my riding of Burnaby, who people have got
Why
beautiful
should
homes. I
fuck
ask them, what's
fuck the
number one
value
concern?
of
They say
older
housing.
people's homes?
I kinda look
Everyone
around
should
the
have a
house and say,
home.
well,
I don't
we've got a
care
home.
how
I
much
say,
your
well, I'm
home
not
is
worried for
worth
myself.
now.
I've got a place, but I'm worried about my kids.
Yep.
And they're more concerned that their kids will never be able to
Yup.
find a home than
Yup.
their own circumstances because they're okay. They are worried about their kids.
If you have a
The
home, you
reality
have a
is,
home.
It is impossible for young people to even imagine buying a home,
Oh my
let alone
God, I hate
renting a place that's
conservatives.
in their budget. So we've got to get the big money out of housing. Young people, young families, professionals
So your
shouldn't have to
answer is
compete.
that your answer is that it is more important for young people to get into
Yes.
the housing market rather than
Yes,
protect
it is.
people who have equity in their home
we
now.
can do both.
They still
And-
have
and
a
our plan
home.
is that,
You dumb.
everyone's
Oh my
telling us
God.
The number one concern they have for their kids. is
I
that
can
they're not sure
immediately
they're ever
tell
gonna
that
be
this
able
is
to
a
own home.
conservative
We wanna change
fucking
that. It's
fart
gotten worse
sniffing
with Mr.
cunt.
Trudeau. We're
Holy
gonna fix it.
shit.
Thank you. Mr. Blanchette, nice to see you, sir. Seniors, as you were talking about off the top, they're really worried about the increased cost of living. You, as you said, have criticized the Liberals for increasing old age security only for those 75 and older. But statistics show time and again
Yeah,
that
she's
older
a
seniors
newscaster
are
or something,
less likely
whatever.
to have employment income, and they actually have higher
I
health
instantly
expenses.
don't like her.
So why should an increase in seniors go to all seniors instead of those who need it most?
First, let's say that this
Because
Prime
means
Minister
testing
supposed
is
to be
bullshit.
the champion who fights against all kinds of discrimination, and it did create himself.
Everybody
two
needs
classes
help,
of,
especially under
elder
fucking
seniors.
after
What we
COVID.
want is for those between 65 and 75 to spend their private funds. In the meantime.
No, but I've just given you the example about why. I've
will-
just given you the example about why the government may have
I
done
hate
that,
this
sir. It's because
conservative
people who are
framing.
65 to
My own
75.
answer,
Oh my
please.
God.
May I follow up, please? That those people generally stay employed and generally have fewer health costs.
Those people have worked all their lives until 65 years old. They have paid for a
Yep.
pension that should be the same for everybody.
Yep.
And for some financial issues, the government creates two classes of seniors. It is unacceptable, and no calculation whatsoever should be so unethical.
All right.
He's
thank
making
you,
some
Mr.
good
Blanchet.
arguments for
We
why
are now
means
moving
testing
to
is
the
bullshit.
open debate
Yeah.
I just have a
section.
question for Mr. Trudeau, I believe.
I'm very
Especially
sorry.
when
I
it
don't
comes
think we
to
should let him
support
off the
for
hook. I think we would all
seniors.
agree.
I got a little mixed up there.
Making some of our arguments
No,
on the
no.
other ones.
Well, we'll make you uncomfortable now, sir.
There we go.
You said
I
in
hate this
2019
bitch. Okay.
that
I don't like
Canadians should
Trudeau, but I
never
also
have
I
to
really
make
don't
the,
like
and
her.
these are your words, impossible choice between paying for medications or putting food on the table. We have seen you, particularly in these recent months, willing to spend billions of dollars on programs that matter to your government. Daycare would be another example of that. Why is there no money in your platform or in your most recent budget for a national pharmacare program? Is it no longer a priority? And should you not just tell Canadians that, sir?
No, it continues to be a priority because, indeed, no one should have to choose between paying for groceries and medications. On health investments, we were all
That's a decision I
focused
actually
on
have to make
COVID-19 and
right now.
supporting the provinces and making sure that on that we were giving the support we needed so we could
Donation
have Canadians'
link
backs.
below,
But
guys.
at the same time, we worked with a number of different jurisdictions, and we've actually signed with Prince Edward Island a national universal pharmacare.
You've signed
first
one deal,
step.
sir, but there's
Yes,
nothing in
it
your
is one
there's
deal.
nothing in your platform in terms of costing. I understand the pandemic kept you busy. What about going forward? Why wouldn't you put
Going
that in
forward,
place?
we are going to continue to, but we know that it's
Continue
not
to is not
something
do.
we did.
He
with
never,
Prince
like,
Edward Island. We're going to continue
It's so true. Like, they
do
try to
with
push
others
him on,
in
no, what are
respect
you
to the
gonna
provincial
do?
jurisdiction
And
that is
all he
delivery
can
of
do is
healthcare.
talk
We
about
can't
what he did.
impose pharmacare in a province that doesn't want it.
He's
unlike
almost
the
worse
NDP
than
proposes.
Trump in that
We
regard.
are going to work in partnership as we have
At
on
least
so
Trump would
many
be like,
things
we're
to
going to
get
do
it done
this. We're going to
like we
get the
did on
best
child
deals. It's going to be
Okay,
amazing.
And now we're going to move to open debate. Starting back with you, Rosie.
Okay, and we start here, I believe, with Mr. Blanchette.
That's correct.
So, Mr. Blanchette, what is one policy change that you think would make the biggest difference to Canadians or Quebecers, in your case, in terms of their cost of living? The one change that you would like to see that would help them the most?
Cost of living, that's quite interesting because that's a worry that we have. We believe that the most important thing is changing the way we create wealth. We believe that transforming our own resources, natural resources, with our own clean energy in our regions of Quebec will create more wealth. This wealth will come from an environmental, I will get this word, environmental preoccupation as well. And we will do that, and we should be entitled to do that with our
I just
want to
say, guys, no matter how based this guy might sound at times, like, don't let the French nationalists fool you. Just like don't let the conservatives fool you.
Not really, but quickly.
These people are still insane. All right.
We have some seconds to speak about French-speaking communities and Acadians.
Well, not in this section.
They have some good points on some issues, but they're still insane.
One of the things we know, the cost of living has gone up. The cost of medication is going up. The cost of being able to afford the medication that keeps you healthy. Mr. Trudeau, $0 in your fully costed budget means zero commitment to getting it done.
You don't have a fully costed
$0, but you've shown your evidence with your costed budget. You've shown Canadians clearly you've got no interest in doing something that you promised to do
in your
2 years ago.
Mr. Singh.
You promised to do it 2 years ago. You committed. You campaigned on it. You included it in your throne speech, and now you've completely abandoned it. How can people trust any promise you make when there's $0 in your plan?
Okay, brief response, then Ms. Paul, then I'm coming to you, Mr. O'Toole. Briefly, Mr. Paul.
I do agree. They got to keep hitting him, yo. We got to keep hitting Trudeau.
For health, for the priorities that Canadians have told us on. Better
Chip away
support
at him,
for
yo.
seniors in care. Better support for mental health services across the country, particularly for young people, and access to a primary care doctor.
Everyone's chipping away at Trudeau's.
$25 billion over the next 4 years gives. Mr.
Trudeau's
O'Toole's
HP
money
is
for
pretty low.
health is backloaded to 6, 7, 8,
So
9,
is
10
O'Toole's.
years
All
from now.
right, Mr. Trudeau, thank you, Ms. Paul.
Sing's still looking good.
The question
So
was
is,
what
I keep
policies
forgetting
have the biggest impact on
green
people's
lady's
cost of
name.
living.
Ms. Paul.
And I think that we have a perfect example of this again here, because the biggest thing that could make a difference in the cost of living for people is a change in the culture in Ottawa. It is so painful for me because I've had the experience of, again, having my grandparents work until they were 75 and living 600 and 800 square feet and wondering how we were going to feed ourselves some nights. I've had that experience, and I know that one day of delay is too much. So when I think that we could have being in Parliament
will the
now,
UBI actually happen?
What is the policy, Ms. Paul? These are anecdotes. What is the policy?
In 8 years, when we get this lady elected.
The thing that we need is a change in the culture.
She's not getting
It's a change
elected
in the
now.
culture because there are several parties on this platform right now that agree on guaranteed livable income and universal pharmacare and childcare. But it's always soon come.
UBI is not the only solution, by the way. The more is needed
Doubling the Canadian workers' benefit
in
that
order to
amounts
fix
$1
shit. But
per
like,
hour
it's a
raise
good
for
step in the
working
right direction.
families. These are people working very hard, and I respect whether they get up to work a shift in a restaurant or work to open their small business. We're going to have your back. We're also going to get costs down. We're the only party with a recovery plan that includes all Canadians. And when it comes to cynicism that Mr. Trudeau talked about earlier, all of the commitments continue to be a priority. He's going to get to the calls to action. He's going to have transparency. He's going to make targets. He announces things and never delivers. Mr. Trudeau, a prime minister has to deliver on the word, not just
hit him.
words to make
Get him below the belt, yo.
By the way, Mr.
Ooh,
O'Toole,
he's weak.
I won't take lessons from you on
Finish
making
him.
promises and not following up. When we see you're
should take a
beholden
few
to the
lessons,
gun
sir.
lobby, we're holding to anti-vaxxers, you're
All
beholden
right.
to a
Remember,
range of
this
people.
is affordability, and Mr. Trudeau, I'm sorry, we're out of time now,
I've
sir.
been responding to people. Can I answer Rosie's question directly?
You have 5 seconds, sir.
We were able to lift 1 million people out of poverty
He's
and
such
create
a
1 million
child.
jobs at the same time with the right kinds of investments over the past 5 years.
And Mr.
More than
Trudeau,
5
I have
seconds.
I'm sorry, sir. I have to wrap you right there because it is now
Trudeau
time for
is
our next
so
theme
embarrassing.
on COVID recovery. Rosie, thank you so much.
This is our prime minister? Yeah, I see why people hate him so much. I haven't paid very much attention at all to Canadian politics until very recently.
Ethan Herman
And
is
like, I know
standing by
people
in
shit on Trudeau
Saskatoon. He's
constantly,
an
but holy
undecided
fuck.
voter, and he wants to hear from
Yeah,
you
this is embarrassing.
about COVID recovery. Hey, Ethan, go ahead.
Wow.
Hey, good evening, leaders. My question is this. Coming out of this pandemic, how will you, if elected as Prime Minister, going to unify and drive Canada forward with respect to healthcare, jobs in the economy, and ensuring a higher quality of life is achievable for all Canadians, regardless of race, color, creed, or sexual orientation?
All right, leaders, you've heard from Ethan. Mr. O'Toole, you're up first.
Thank you, Mr. Herman. That is exactly why I launched Canada's recovery plan on the first day of the campaign. We're going to create 1 million jobs in 1 year. We're going to clean up the accountability mess in Ottawa. We're going to have national leadership on mental health. We're going to be more ready for a pandemic, and we're going to get our finances under control. I want to get people working. I want to give families a break. And since the moment I became Conservative leader, I've been reaching out, whatever your background, your faith, your color, your sexual orientation, whether you're Indigenous, whether you're a new Canadian, you're important to Canada's recovery, and you're important to the Conservative Party. And I'd ask you to look at Canada's recovery
Pretty
plan.
words. Where
After
are the
these 18 months as a country, we need a plan and a leader that will actually deliver.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
deliver what though?
Thank you, Mr. Herman. And I swear I did not line up that question. He's not a ringer. But this really comes to the heart of the matter, which again is about changing the culture of politics in Ottawa. We have heard from outgoing MPs in the last Parliament how incredibly important that is, that the culture has become toxic, that has become hyper-partisan. And, you know, there used to be a time, I worked as an intern in a nonpartisan way in the Ontario legislature. You know, you would make a fuss and question period, and then you'd get to work across party lines and committees.
People in general
to
are
find the
too
solutions
partisan.
To help people in Canada.
Everyone thinks in
And
terms
so
of
we
like
need less
conservative and
partisanship.
liberal,
We need
even in
more
Canada. It's
diverse
really dumb.
voices so that we can get the access to the best
Really
ideas in a more
tribalistic and
cooperative
stupid.
collaborative way.
Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Mr. Herman, thank you for your question. And your question touched on a number of things. Healthcare is something very near and dear to my heart. And we've
What are
seen
we
in
gonna
this
do about it?
pandemic that our healthcare system simply hasn't been there. And
True.
it's not because of the pandemic. A lot of these problems were there from before.
True.
So our commitment is to invest in our healthcare system, to defend
Based.
it. Unlike Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole, who believe in private long-term care delivery, we want to get
Not
out
based.
profit, get out the greed
Yup,
from the delivery
yup,
of long-term
yup,
care.
yup.
We want to invest in pharmacare for all, not promise it in 2019 and then have $0 to commit towards it. We want to see everyone have access to medication. We want to include dental care into our healthcare system and mental health services. And to do all of that, we want to make sure that the billionaires start paying their fair share so we can invest in you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Trudeau.
Ethan, I think the folks on the stage missed the very first part of your
Base,
question.
perfect
which is,
answer.
you know,
Like,
once we get
he
out
did-
of
he
this
did- I think he did
pandemic, and
really
yes,
good
we have
answering
plans
with-
for
answering
being
that.
more ambitious on climate change and making sure people get good jobs. But we have to get out of this pandemic first. And that's why the unequivocal leadership that we've shown as a government on making sure that everyone gets vaccinated is what's going to get us through. We cannot rebuild the economy until we get through this pandemic. And unfortunately, Mr. O'Toole, who says he wants to get all of Canada vaccinated to 90% in the coming 2 months, can't even convince his own candidates to get vaccinated to 90%.
That's a good
We have to get
point,
through
but
this. We
that's
are
not what he
unequivocal
should
that
be talking
vaccinations
about.
are the way
Thank
But
you, Mr.
again,
Trudeau. Mr.
Trudeau
Blanchet.
is doing a
I think
really
Mr.
good
Trudeau
job
forgot the second
at
part of
making
your
both
question, which is
himself
about
and
healthcare.
O'Toole look like idiots
Let's
at the
be
same time.
efficient.
So,
Healthcare is a jurisdiction
Good
of
job,
the
Justin.
provinces and Quebec.
good fucking job.
Those are the territories, the jurisdictions who should have the resources to do their job. The promises of the Conservatives is 3.5% of increase a year for the first 3 years, which is very far from what the provinces asked for. And what the provinces asked for is not even in the program of Mr. Trudeau. So it will be hard to be efficient if those who are responsible of healthcare do not have the resources which are owed to them.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Thanks, Ethan, for your question. Have a good
Motherfucker.
night. We're going to let you go. It is now time, Ms. Paul and Mr. Singh, to go face to face, starting
right.
with Ms. Paul. And I want to talk
She
about
keeps
Canada's
calling her
parallel
Mr.
pandemic,
Paul.
the opioid crisis. Since it has taken hold, more than 20,000
She did it like
Canadians have
3,
died,
5 or
often
6
in the
times already. Like,
shadows. This
yeah.
is an insidious killer that is tearing families apart. To both of you, starting with Ms. Paul, does the political will exist to confront it?
We called many times during the last session of Parliament across party lines again for us to first recognize that this was a national health emergency and then to decriminalize simple possession because we know we need to end the stigma and create a national safe supply program. We asked every party to do it because 17 lives on average are being lost every day. We didn't hear anything from anyone. And it comes back to Mr. Herman's question about unity. Can we not unify on something like this where it's clear what we need to do? If we can't do that, then none of these other things are possible. And so that's what we have to try to do.
We definitely need to respond to this crisis with everything we have. We've long called for it to be declared a national public health emergency. And what we know is the approach that has been taken for decades simply doesn't work. The approach of arresting someone, putting them through the criminal justice system, putting them in jail does not make communities safer, and it doesn't help people. So we have been saying, and I believe very firmly, we need to provide healthcare responses to people that are dealing with addiction. We need to make sure we are doing everything we can to secure a safe supply. We need to look at the evidence and say really clearly, if there is any step we can take that'll save lives, we've got to take it.
So there's a lot to
This
do,
is
but does the
super
political
base.
will exist to do it?
That is
Damn.
exactly the question. Is there the political will?
There is,
Will we
on
all?
behalf of the
There
Democrats.
doesn't seem to be, because we need a national
Well, I
safe
got the
supply
will.
program. We wanted it before Parliament
would
dissolved,
not hear
and here
this
we
talked
are,
about
and
on
lives
the
will be lost in my
American
riding
debate
at Toronto
stage.
Centre,
All right.
probably today because
All
of
right,
it.
Ms. Paul, I have to wrap you there. It's good to hear, Mr. Singh, that it is at least coming from you. Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Blanchette, Mr. O'Toole, this round to you. Starting with Mr. Trudeau, during the pandemic, Canadians watched in horror the suffering of their most vulnerable and frail loved ones in long-term care. What if tomorrow you had to place a family member in a long-term care facility? Would you do it? Beginning with you, Mr. Trudeau,
What
Mr.
kind of
O'Toole, Mr.
softball
Blanchette, you may
question
jump
is that?
Tomorrow's my mom's 73rd birthday. So,
How does that have
is
anything to do
certainly
with
something we're
policy?
reflecting on, but she's doing wonderfully right now.
What
We
is
won't
that
have to make
question?
decision right now. Don't worry, Mom. The reality is we've heard from seniors across this country who've been tremendously worried through this pandemic, and family members worried about that. We know that the conditions of work for the people who are in those long-term care homes are often dictating the conditions of care for seniors, which is why we propose to hire 50,000 new personal support workers working with the provinces with the money for that. Also increasing the minimum salary to $25 an hour for people who care for our elders and most vulnerable. Because
So if you
we
had
know
to put
that
mom in
happens.
long-term care, you would do it?
I would make sure that, yes, that they are people who are properly well cared and
This
that
is
there
where
is
we
enough
need
of a
partnerships.
proportion.
It sounded like he was giving a
That's
better
where,
answer than
we
the
will
question
work
that
with
she
the
asked.
provinces to deliver exactly that, because we put
Thank
real
you.
money
Thank you,
forward.
What is
Mr.
this
Trudeau, Mr.
emotional
O'Toole.
appeal? Would
This
you
is where
put
we
your
need
own mother?
partnerships for long-term care for the CHSLD in Quebec. We're going to have a $3 billion fund that the provinces can draw on for infrastructure upgrades to long-term care. That's in addition to our record, almost $60 billion commitment over 10 years to the public healthcare system. Universal access with no conditions. We need to partner with the provinces, not create fights. And long-term care, learning from the gaps in the first part of this pandemic is something we need. And I have to address...
Would you put a loved one in long-term care
Absolutely.
tomorrow,
I have
Mr.
a
O'Toole?
grandmother in one,
All right.
and we've been in touch with her. But I have to touch on what Mr. Trudeau said about the recovery. We have to get through the pandemic first. Why did you not have that approach to the election, Mr. Trudeau? We're in the fourth wave. Everything in the recovery relates to getting out of the pandemic first.
This is such an odd question.
Mr. Blanchette,
No one's
I'm going to
taking
let
it
Mr.
seriously.
Blanchette in.
Add 4 minutes more than I did. So now I think it's enough. The debate is almost over. Some dads and some moms don't have to worry. They will have the money, of course. Some do. And in order to give them the care they need, the care they deserve, those responsible for those cares, provinces and Quebec, should have, without conditions, because it is their responsibility, their knowledge, their expertise, the resources required. When the Army came in Quebec, they wrote a report afterward. What did they say? They did not say Quebec is not good enough to take care of its seniors. They said They lacked resources.
Is he saying he wants
They
free
lacked the money.
Thank you,
Senior care?
Mr.
'Cause
Blanchet.
I agree with
Leaders,
that.
we are starting to get out. We're
respond
running out of time. I am sorry. Mr. Trudeau, you've had the most time tonight. I'm sorry, Mr. Trudeau. We are now moving on to our final
Shut the fuck up,
journalist of the
Trudeau.
night. I am welcoming Evan
You've been
Solomon
talking
from
too
CTV News.
Trudeau
He's going
talk
to be
too
putting
much, yo.
questions to you on
Hashtag
COVID
Trudeau talk
recovery,
too
starting
much.
with Mr. Singh. Hey, Evan.
Hi, Shachi, and hi, leaders. Good to see all of you.
Trudeau talked more
Mr.
than
Singh,
Paul
I'll start with you,
this
sir.
debate.
Your pandemic recovery plan is uncosted. You have no plan to balance the books, but you promise to pay for your expensive promises, new programs like universal dental care with taxing the super rich and taxing corporations. What specifically would you do to create the 1 million jobs you're promising and make sure Canada stays competitive?
Let's hear it. Blow this one out of the water.
We have the
Come
only
on.
credible
Come
plan
on.
that's not going to cut help to Canadians, that's not going to put the burden back on the same people that have struggled. We're the only ones on this debate table now can say clearly we would tax the billionaires. We would make sure companies like Amazon start paying their fair share so we can invest in those new jobs, so we can invest in people. Left to Mr. Trudeau or Mr. O'Toole, they are going to put the burden back on you. They've already started. Mr. Trudeau has already started by cutting the CRE, cutting help to people.
But what new programs, sir, specifically?
Well, I believe in making sure we invest in pharmacare, we invest in dental care, we invest in retrofitting homes and buildings. In doing this, we're going to lower the cost of living, help people save money, but also create jobs by investing in the future economy, the economy of the future.
Talk about the specific taxes
Trudeau,
you want to.
Only 4 months
See, like
ago,
Bernie
you
will always
released
bring up
a budget that was billed as a pandemic recovery program.
Bernie would always bring up like his Wall Street tax.
Since then, COVID numbers are up.
Where he said like putting a point whatever percent tax on Wall Street would make however many billion dollars, which could pay for Medicare for all. That's what Singh he needs a talking point like that.
Just keep growing in another few
Is he a
months.
Sikh? I think so.
What do you say to the next generation who say, how are we going to pay for this?
Well, first of all, I made a promise during this pandemic.
This is the first time I've watched this debate. It's very entertaining. It's live.
I came out of my house
I mean, we're watching,
early on in the pandemic to talk
live,
directly to Canadians. I told them I'd be there for you. And that's exactly what we've done. And it wasn't just being there for people because we're nice, although of course we are. It was being there because that is the best way to ensure a strong recovery. Now, yes, our budget showed our ambition for this country, including with $10 a day childcare that Mr. O'Toole is planning on ripping up, but we also shows a responsible fiscal track. And even with our fully costed platform that is even more ambitious on the fight against climate change, on housing, on supports for people, the debt of our country as proportion of the GDP continues to decrease.
Oh my
yes
God,
or no?
dude.
Is it important to have a plan?
Imagine if we get like universal dental care passed, dude.
And that's what we're doing. Our debt continues
I can't even listen to
Okay,
Trudeau. I'm just thinking of Singh was prime
to
minister,
you
yo. Oh my
you have
God.
not been clear if you support the need for vaccine passports or mandatory vaccines for federal workers or even mandatory vaccines for your own candidates. Given that the fourth wave is really a pandemic of the unvaccinated,
Mandatory. Let's do it.
Overwhelm many healthcare systems, how do you justify not supporting the
I hate calling them
passport
vaccine passports. It's such a dishonest framing.
Evan, we just filmed a video today asking everyone to get vaccinated. We have been unequivocal in our support for vaccinations.
Mandatory vaccinations and vaccine passports.
Well, again, this is just this is again where policy gets put aside for partisan advantage, because everyone on this stage understands that everyone who can be vaccinated should be vaccinated. We need to encourage people to do it. Vaccine saves lives. And every single person on the stage has also said that, of course, there are going to be people who are not able to get vaccinated for certain reasons, and we have to reasonably accommodate them. We will always be guided by the science. We will never.
You should
put
need a note
partisan
from your
concerns
fucking doctor.
ahead of public health.
Mr. O'Toole.
In fact,
You
probably a
promised
note from multiple doctors.
$60 billion increase in healthcare transfers over the next 10 years, but according to
Whatever,
the
I'll say a
independent
note from
parliamentary
one
budget
doctor
officer,
is probably enough.
It's actually only a transfer of $3.6 billion for the next 5 years, which is not much.
We just make it
different
a
than the
huge
status quo.
penalty if that
But
doctor
you also
lies.
support private-public synergies, in your words. Can you specify here tonight exactly what kinds of private healthcare innovations you want to see more of? And if a province introduces more private health care, would you enforce the Canada Health Act by holding back any of your promised funding?
I 100% support our public and universal system. I've said it's paramount And after COVID-19, we need to rebuild it. So we have the most substantive plan to do that. 6% increase per year, stable, predictable, without conditions funding to partner with our provinces. We will respect them running and putting priorities to get wait times down, to give more choice, for universal public access. That's what we need. On top of that, Evan, we have a substantial commitment in mental health and treatment for addiction. There are going to be lingering aspects from this pandemic that we're going to do in addition.
But just,
the provinces are in charge of their system. We will respect that. Public and universal elements need to be at the core of our system, and our investments will save it and give relief to front lines like our nurses, physicians. Mr. Trudeau doesn't hire those people.
Just for time.
All right, we got to wrap you, Mr. O'Toole.
See, I really hope that the rest of Canadians are as sick and tired of this hyper-partisan fucking like back and forth. Every time Trudeau speaks, it's Mr. O'Toole says this. Every time O'Toole speaks, it's Mr. Trudeau says this.
Your fundamental argument of separatism.
Whereas, like, you know,
if the federal government say
the other candidates are actually talking ideas,
which Quebec failed to protect, why should they not?
Jagmeet will get the taxes from the 1%. That's how he'll get the money to create healthcare and affordable health. No, I know that, but like he should be very specific when he says that. He should have a very specific.
That a Quebecer cannot do. In what way whatsoever would
like a very specific outline of his
any
plan
better than a Quebec norm? I don't see that, and I'm not. You know, I don't have this complex. I don't feel that I'm any lesser person than a Canadian because I'm a Quebecer.
National standard. If you pay for something, should you be able to enforce
national norms or standards? And I would say that the Premier Legault of Quebec today said, no one is to be entirely trusted in this
but
group
they're
of
not
people,
the
some
only
are worse
competition
than
for
others.
each
I
other.
think they
That's how they're
recognize
acting, and it's
themselves.
so
But even
arrogant.
those who are
That's what I'm
less-
saying.
little bit less
I hope that the rest of
need
like
to watch
Canadian
because they're not entitled to a majority
citizens like
government.
look at
So,
this with
if
the
Quebecers
same
want, I
cynicism
believe
that I do and see look at these two. Look at these hyper arrogant, petulant fucking children. Why do we want either of them?
The pandemic
They're
recovery
both
about the future
fucking
path of
idiots.
Canada. And all of the leaders here tonight
They're
have
both
made promises
any
that
one of
require
holy
historic
like
levels of
I would
spending.
almost pick the
But as you
fucking
all know,
French
politics is
nationalist
about hard
dude
choices.
over
With some
either of those
Canadians still
two.
in real need of
Literally,
support and other industries
if I could cut
experiencing
both
real labor
Trudeau
shortages,
and
what specific
O'Toole
programs
out of it
will
and
stay
have like
and
roll
what
the
will
dice
go in the next year,
between
and who will
NDP,
pay for all of this, Mr. O'Toole?
That's a
Green
great question,
and
Evan,
Bloc,
because we
I would
didn't
do
see the
that.
government
I would
adapt
do
to
that.
the changing crisis. What we supported,
You should
we
try
all
living
worked
in the US.
together,
I
the wage
did live in the
subsidy to
US.
serve needed to be adapted.
I did live in the
as there were
US
labor shortages in
without
Quebec, as we can't
citizenship,
find enough people for restaurants
without
and
a
service
job,
industry.
without
We
any
need to
fucking
target the highly impacted sectors.
insurance or
That's
anything.
what our
Like
plan, Canada's Recovery
I
Plan
did.
does.
It
We
was hell.
Get those service, tourism, restaurants back on their feet, get people working, and with keeping cases low, we can then wind down the other programs because we need to focus on work. We have a job boost that will actually incentivize the hiring of people that have been out of work for 10 months or more.
Mr. O'Toole, let Mr. Singh in.
Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Trudeau are jumping over each other about who's going to cut help to people first. I don't agree with that approach. I don't think it makes sense to say, oh, I'm going to have people's back, but I'm going to cut as quickly as I can. I'm going to cut the help to people who need it as much as they can. We're the only party right here clearly is going to say to you, you're not going to have to pay more. We're not going to cut any programs. We're going to ask the 44.
Singh, we're giving working
sir,
Canadians.
Hold on a second.
$1.
We're going to ask the
Let Mr.
44
O'Toole
richest
respond.
billionaires.
No, let him finish what he's
If
saying.
That's what we're going to do.
Respond to
Oh
that
my
because
God.
This is the second time that Mr. Singh has said we're the only party where just us. Mr. Singh, you know that's
Hold on, Mr.
Okay,
Singh.
but
Unless
sorry,
you're trying to ghost me,
dude,
know
you don't.
that
You're not gonna
so,
win.
Okay.
Sure,
So,
the Green
yes.
says
I know
Okay.
you're a big girl. You want to
Right.
wear your big
Mr.
girl
Trudeau,
pants
you're
and
trying
show
to
you're
get
just
Mr.
as good.
Singh continues
Chill.
to pretend
You-
that it makes
vote
no difference
PPC.
whether there is a progressive government or a conservative or progressive government.
Aren't the
or a,
PPC just
conservative
Nazis?
Government.
Yeah, fuck off.
We know
All right.
that it makes a huge difference to families whether they have $10 a day childcare, whether they have a government.
The
that has their
NDP
back, a government that has
NDPs
a
are
plan to
infinitely
move
more based.
beyond the Harper targets
PPC.
on fighting climate
Talk
change.
about
Now,
parties
Mr.
that don't have a
Singh may
chance.
feel that for the NDP it makes no difference who forms government. I know for Canadian families
Mr.
it makes a
Trudeau.
Mr.
huge
Blanchet, you
difference that the
haven't
government
been
be
in yet.
progressive.
Mr. Blanchet.
Translate subvention salariale.
wage subsidy.
Wage subsidy.
The PPC are
Did
basically
any
just
of
a
you three
further right
guys
party.
refund the wage subsidy that you received
We
up
stopped
to
it
about
now.
$3 million. That would be something, at least for the principal. After that, there's an
I think they
important
fancy
issue,
themselves
labor shortage.
libertarians.
They are promising jobs.
You
They
know,
should
in the
be promising
American
workers.
sense.
Yes.
We
Not
need
in what
people
libertarian
to work,
actually means.
and that raises the question of productivity. This is the most important issue, and some programs should be turned toward that issue.
Mr. O'Toole.
In this pandemic election that Mr. Trudeau called, after everyone asked him not to, he says he doesn't worry about monetary policy
People's
and inflation.
Party of Canada,
Now
they're
he's
white
saying he
suprem-
doesn't
yeah,
ever
yeah.
intend to balance the budget. He's spending
They're basically the alt-right party.
$424 million a day more than Canada's
But what
bringing
programs?
in.
The question was,
We
what
need-
programs will stay?
There's a
and what
reason
will
why
not?
they're not on
Line
this
down the
stage.
programs in a
I can
fair
respond
way
to that directly.
and get the country working
We
again.
have got to remember.
Thank you.
Have got to
Last
remember.
minute
I'm gonna
of
fight for
play,
my
ladies. Last minute of play.
PPC are the
Ice
only
Wall,
party
5
to
seconds
treat
to
all
you. I'm coming
Canadians
to
as
you, Ms.
equals.
Ball.
Thank you. We have got to remember the
You
pandemic
mean as,
is not over, and all over this country, people still need the benefits. They should be
as
there
scum,
until the
as a bu-
pandemic
as
is
a bunch
over.
of,
and to the people
serfs?
of Canada, it is unfortunate we are in this election. You can see that there is a lot of work left to do. We need to get back to doing it
Get outta
in a
here.
more cooperative
Okay, thank
way.
you, Ms.
One
Paul.
of the
Mr. Singh,
specific
I see you,
programs-
Mr. Trudeau. Mr.
One of the
Singh.
specific programs, we demanded 22 times in Parliament for Mr. Trudeau to expand was paid sick leave. Because in this pandemic, people had to make the impossible choice going into work sick or not being able to because they couldn't pay their bills. 22 times over 18 months, we demanded an expansion, and Mr. Trudeau said no to you and said no to your family.
Last word to you on
Actually
this, Mr.
expanding
Trudeau.
sick leave to 10 days of paid
See,
sick
when
leave for
Singh
federal
does
workers.
go
Now,
after Trudeau,
in
he
the
makes it
election, this is
pointed.
important.
It's
You
not
have
just
seen
childish,
tonight
like,
the
shit flinging.
Extreme differences between the perspectives of
Okay.
these parties.
So I think he
Leaders-
actually does a good job
Canadians
at
to make the
attacking
right
him
choice
Leaders,
when
we
he
that
does
is it.
choose to.
together.
We're out of time. Evan, thank you. Leaders, thank you for your participation tonight. That's it for the English language leaders debate.
Wow, that was
Voting day is September 20th. Get your ballots. Make sure you're registered.
20th, y'all.
On behalf of the Leaders Debate Consortium, I want to thank the crew, the producers, everyone who made this happen. I'm Shachi Curl. Good night.
Good night, very much. Good night.
Well, goddamn. So yeah, that was a shit show. I guess not as much of a shit show as the the U.S. elections. Here, let's go back a little bit because there was a. I was watching this, like, I saw this, it popped up on Twitter for me, and, like, I was watching it a little bit on Twitter before I decided, you know what, why the fuck not, like, actually, like, respond to this. So, yeah, let's go back, to, like, near the beginning, and, like, let's, why not? Let's comment on some of the shit. Hell yeah, NDP. So, but before doing that, I will say my overall impression of this, my overall thoughts and take on this debate is that, yeah, I would say Singh probably came out looking the best, as well as Paul, the Green candidate. She looks pretty decent as well. She did a good job. My take of the two main front runners, they both look like idiots and children. And like I said, I hope more Canadians share my sentiment here, where it's like you look at these two like main choices that were supposedly given and you're like, these are garbage. And with a lot of Canadians, they think like, oh, well, we have to pick one of them, right? But no, we don't. We get locked into that like American like political mindset that like the dichotomy, the false dichotomy gets built up where it's like, do we go right or left? Do we go conservative, liberal? In Canada, we have the privilege that is not our only option. See, when I was living in the States and I was like far more focused on American politics, and we were going through the American election, I talked a lot about the need to vote for Biden to reduce harm. Because I believe that I believe that Trump would have caused more harm objectively. I know a lot of people said, well, the Democratic Party doesn't do anything. They're garbage. They're a bunch of do nothing neo-libs, you know. And I agree with all of that. But like this idea that we're going to disempower the Democratic Party by just not voting for them, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't. Not in America. It doesn't, because if the Democratic Party gets like no votes, like if no one votes for them, then the Republicans win. And then we have a worse situation on our hands. But here we have more options. And also, I'll say this, our more right-leaning party, the Conservative Party, well, they are still insane, okay? They're insane, and we shouldn't empower them. I do think it's less detrimental than letting Republicans win. And I'm not even suggesting letting them win. I'm suggesting if we vote NDP, and as a result of that, liberals lose to a conservative, that's less horrible for a number of reasons than doing the same thing in America and saying, well, no, I'm going to vote for the Green Party in America over the Democratic Party for a number of reasons. Again, like just voting for the Green Party, you're not giving them any power in America. All right. For voting for a third party in America, you kind of are throwing away your vote. I mean, if in theory, if a third party could gain enough traction, like honestly, I think it's more likely that it could happen on the right at this point. There is a very there's a very big ideological split among conservatives in America, and it's between the more more centrist leaning but still very reactionary type right, and the super reactionary hyper extremist evangelical Christian right. And you know, the that could possibly lead, honestly, depending on where the Republican Party goes, that could possibly lead towards a massive number of conservatives not feeling represented by the Republican Party and, you know, going elsewhere. And I do think a third party on the right is probably more viable in America. But I will say this, if that happens, that all that would really do is split the conservative vote in America so that basically neither party would ever win. Unless this hypothetical right-wing third party was able to drum up so much support by basically pushing like a really fake populist message and like getting people like excited, that could in theory happen, okay? But it's not very likely. And also, if something were to happen where we have, like, for the sake of argument, a Democrat, Republicans, and then the Libertarian Party ends up getting like half the Republican vote, that doesn't really do anything. That doesn't do, like, the half Republican votes that went to the Libertarians don't now have like a seat at the table in government. So all you could really do is build momentum from one election to the next until they, you know, and it's 4 to 8 years at a time. Oftentimes when an American politician is elected, they're elected for 2 terms. I mean, Trump kind of broke that because it was a bit of a trend for a while. And Biden's probably going to be Biden's probably not going to be elected either. So we're going to have a really unique period in American history where there's like an 8-year period where where we had like 2 administrations in a row that were only 1-term administrations. But and who knows what's going to happen after that, by the way. Like we really don't know what's going to happen in 2024. But to bring it back to Canada, it's different in Canada. We have a parliamentary government, which means that if the NDPs, even if the NDPs don't win, if they gain a significant amount of the vote, they're gaining seats on Parliament in the Canadian Parliament, which means they're actually able to affect the laws that are passed. Like they actually have a seat at the table. So empowering the NDP party, even at the risk of losing the election to a conservative, doesn't have as much long-term harm as doing the same thing in the States would. Because, again, you're empowering the NDPs, which they will now have the ability to, influence what the government does and potentially, stop the conservatives from doing certain things or convince the conservatives to do certain things because they have so much power in certain areas. So that makes it a good reason why to vote for NDPs. Another is that look, I don't have any delusions that we could definitely win. I think it's a possibility, depending on, like I said, depending on how people came out of that debate thinking. Because if they came out of that debate with the same attitude that I did, just kind of sick of O'Toole and Trudeau, sick of the conservative-liberal dichotomy, sick of the arrogant narcissism of the two prominent prospective front runners, and wanting something different. And I think at that point, you have to look at the other parties. And I'm not just going to say Singh is the only option, because he's not. I believe it's the most viable option and the best option. And see, there's a lot of ways this could go. Again, if the NDPs win, even if their policies aren't to your particular liking, just having a party further to the left of the Liberal Party win will shake things up immensely. Liberals and conservatives at that point would have to severely alter their strategies in future elections. But even if the NDPs don't win, it could still have a major effect if they gain a significantly higher percentage than they normally do. That could, because the talking point is always that they're never going to win. But if they get a higher percentage, that argument gets less or less viable each time, the better and better they do. So if they get they're let's say, let's say the conservatives get 40% of the vote, liberals get 41% of the vote, and then the NDPs though got 38%, whereas normally they got closer to 20. I'm pulling these numbers out of my ass, by the way. Okay, this is just an example. But let's say they've been way lower. Now they're getting more. Now you can, when you argue with someone we should vote NDP, they're like, they're not going to win. You can be like, but no, they're doing better. If everyone just says they're not going to win, that's what's going to make them not win. You got to realize they're gaining momentum. And, they did better this election cycle. Maybe they can do better in the next. And, it can build up excitement and, more people actually wanting to push that and campaign and talk about, overall, I think it has a good effect. Yeah, like I said, I'm pulling numbers out of my ass. I'm trying to like I was trying to make an example, okay? I should have said votes instead of percent, right? Yeah. Just to make it cleaner. Yeah. But you see what I'm saying, right? Once the French Nationalist Party, like, it's kind of hard to tell. Like, I don't pay close attention to them. No, a lot of people don't. But they're very focused on, like, Quebec first. They're focused on, like, how do we help Quebec? How do we make Quebec a better place? They don't really care. Like, I guess, like, as we saw, like, the candidate, you know, he made some, he did have some points about, like, broader Canada, but, like, he kept going back to, like, Quebec. And they're very Quebec-centric, and it's why a lot of people don't take them seriously, and they don't really do very well outside of Quebec because they're just very pro, like, Quebec. A lot of them, and I don't know if this is, like, the prevailing ideology within the party currently, but I do know that growing up and for a large percentage of my life, like, this has just been a fact. The Bloc Québécois has sought to have Quebec secede from the rest of Canada. There are a lot of secessionists in the Bloc Québécois. So they're a party that even if they make some good points, there's too many insane elements within it. Same as my view on the Conservative Party. Even when the Conservative Party makes some good points on some shit, they're still full of, like, crazy people, and they can put someone who like seems rational at the head of their party all they fucking want. They're still a party mostly built up of crazy people, right? And seceding would not be good. Not for them or us. And so, yeah, like, it's just kind of something that, like, no one with a brain in their head would vote for, like, especially, I mean, you actually can't, I don't think you can vote for them outside of Quebec. Like, they'll never win. That's the thing. They get a lot of support in Quebec, but outside of Quebec, they have basically no power. So they're never gonna, like, win, like, the whole country. The only point of voting for the Bloc is if you're a Quebec citizen and you want life to get better in Quebec, so you want to put Quebec-centric politicians in power so that they can sway national policy in a way that benefits Quebec. That's basically their function, from what I can tell. His name is O'Toole. Yeah, well, he is. Dude, imagine if we have Prime Minister O'Toole. Like, that we need to be against voting Conservative for that reason alone. Who's polling higher, Conservative or NDP? Well, we can take a look. Here. Let's take a look here. Let's see. Let's see. Damn. Okay. Is this, wait, let me make sure that this is up to date. Let's get a few sources here. Damn. It's not looking good, guys. Wait, here, let's and these are just projections, but so we don't know for certain. All right. So we got this is the CBC News poll tracker. Conservatives, Aaron O'Toole, with 33.5%. They're actually down 0.2%, a little bit. We also need to see how this all shapes up after this election, debate rather. Justin Trudeau is up 0.3 points. He's at 31.6%. Jagmeet Singh is at 20%, and he's actually down 0.4 points, which that kind of sucks. I saw him up higher when I looked more recently. I really am curious as to how this debate shakes things up, or if it does. And here we've got this one as well. Yeah, see, this is, and by the way, this is like, God damn it. Just, there we go. Nope, God damn it. I'm trying to like, okay, it's cutting off the side. There we go. All right. So here we have another look at it. It's wait, is it the same numbers? No, it's a little different. And yeah, as you can see here, the Bloc Québécois is only at 6.2. They there's no way that they could even hope to be viable. The People's Party, the PPC, down here at see, damn, they're polling actually higher than the Green Party, and the Green Party was able to get on the stage and not them. That's kind of interesting. Looks like so yeah, as we can see, when the campaign began, the Liberals were doing a lot better. They've been steadily going down, again, in large part due to Trudeau being a fucking idiot. And the Conservatives have been going up, unfortunately, due to O'Toole, unfortunately, seeming like a lot more of a reasonable alternative to low information voters who don't pay close enough attention to policy. It's like I said, it's not like there's some amazing chance that the NDPs are going to win this election. But I do think it serves utility to empower them. They're probably not going to win this election, but honestly, if a good chunk of Liberal voters just say, nah, fuck it, and just, I'm voting NDP, like, holy shit. We could potentially, like, either, because, look, if that's a losing factor for the Liberal Party, that's an embarrassment, okay? And I do feel like Canadians are less likely to pull the, maybe not. It depends, really, but I feel like it'll be less likely here, like the arguments of like, oh, you Bernie bros lost us the election, you NDP voters lost us the election, because I don't think that's gonna fly as much, especially when people are really fucking tired of Trudeau. And again, I want to make the point, because this is a fact. This election, this is all Trudeau's fault. That, like, Trudeau, the only reason Trudeau called this election is because he thought his approval rating was high enough that if they held an election right now, they could get more seats than they originally had. So they would have more power. So he arrogantly called an election in the middle of a fucking pandemic. And this is the result. I almost, like, I'm at the point where, like, if the Liberals lose, I don't care. If the Conservatives win because of this, I don't care. Trudeau is an arrogant fucking man-child who should have just fucking, like holy fuck, continue focusing on getting this fucking pandemic under dealt with. like continue trying to work towards cleaning up the Afghanistan mess in whatever way we fucking can. Taking in refugee. We have other fucking concerns on our hands. Well, I guess the Afghanistan pullout didn't necessarily... I don't know if it was cemented before Trudeau called the election or not, but there's other shit going on. And Trudeau just basically wanting more fucking power. When I saw the popular vote last, I saw NDP was at 45%, Liberals at 41%, and Conservatives at 28%, 15% for Green. Well, these are just like projections, so yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's like actual like a... What is this? Opinion polling? I don't know. It seems like a lot of polls are showing O'Toole ahead. I was looking at shit the other day too, where everyone seemed way more neck and neck. But yeah, I guess these are what news sites are predicting to win. So I don't know how much stock I would put in any of this. I will say this. When it comes to approval rating between the three candidates, or just how popular they are, Singh is actually has the highest popularity out of any of them. I think most people like Singh. The problem is most people think he's not going to win. All I heard was man-child politician be crazy and stupid. Yeah. We're roasting Trudeau tonight. 'Cause what he did was bad. His performance in this debate was bad. Cuz by the way, I don't think he can afford to be sitting there taking pot shots at O'Toole. Honestly, I think it just makes him look worse. I think Trudeau should have spent more time, because okay, I'm re-examining this from like a less biased perspective. I'm trying to like look at this from like your average Canadian. I do think O'Toole came off looking at least a hell of a lot better than Trudeau did. And that's not good. Ideally, like I said, I want people to realize that they both look really fucking bad. But Trudeau was put in the hot seat a number of times tonight. He was put on the defensive. And he didn't come off looking too good. He just didn't. Every fucking time he got really defensive and he could never like state a plan of something they're gonna do. All he could do is like virtue signal about stuff that they've supposedly already done. We get it, you did stuff, but you know what? Clearly there's a lot of other issues at hand, and you need to do more stuff. So how about start talking about the stuff you're gonna do? All right. The way Trudeau acts makes him look more like a little boy. He does. He does. It's really fucking sad. And, like, part of me, like, is worried to go so hard on Trudeau because, well, I mean, whatever. I have a tiny audience and an even tinier Canadian audience, so I'm not going to make an influence on this election, obviously. But just generally, like, the attitude of, like, part of me doesn't want to, like... Because, look, I don't want to live under a conservative government, okay? I don't. So, I don't want Trudeau to lose so badly that the Conservatives win, but that might be the outcome. That might be the fucking outcome. And don't get it twisted, the Conservatives will set us back in a number of ways. And we need to be moving forward, especially with climate change ahead of us. We need to be making, we need to be doing progressive policies now, yesterday, okay? And this is one of the reasons why I want to push progressivism so fucking hard in Canada, because America is clearly going to be behind. They're dead set on being as far behind as they can possibly get away with, and then some, all right? So whatever. On climate change, America is a massive failure. I want to be a part of a country that tries to lead by example in some fucking way and tries to do its part. You know, the more countries that we have being more progressive on this green shit, the better. And while I don't think that O'Toole will do nothing on it, I'm very skeptical of what Conservatives are going to actually get accomplished on this front, especially when we know that they very clearly pay more deference to big businesses than, you know, like, they clearly have an agenda, right? And again, there are a lot of people in the party that don't believe in climate change. So there are going to be politicians at a local level, at lower levels of government, empowered, that are anti-climate change. And so we need to not let Conservatives be empowered. But at the same time, does just empowering the neoliberal status quo establishment, is that the way to affect change in the long run? And this is where, again, my policy prescriptions between, or my electoral views between Canada and America differ. Because in America, I do believe that the quickest way to get progressive policies enacted is by supporting candidates like the Justice Dems, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC, and Nina Turner, and all of those very based individuals. But here in Canada, where things are a little bit different, where the Conservative Party still sucks, but is a little less outright evil. They're still evil, don't get me wrong, but, you know, to a lesser extent. And where we have a further left party that can become viable within the next couple of election cycles if we play our cards right. I think I have to go with, at the end of the day, it is most defensible to say, you know what, no, I'm going to empower NDPs, and maybe we can, ideally, there could be a huge shift across the country. And by the way, this was never going to be possible at such short notice, and I think Trudeau knew this. If we're gonna work towards empowering NDP voices, further left voices, we need to be calling out Trudeau from the left. We need to specifically from the left, not just attack Trudeau. You need to attack Trudeau and flank him from the left. Because with the right campaigns, and again, if we had more time for this election is in a week and a half. I don't think, even if I had a larger platform, even if I was Vosh, you know, I still don't think we could necessarily, you know, we couldn't make that change in 2 weeks, okay? We couldn't. We couldn't convince enough liberals to abandon the party and move further to the left in a matter of a couple weeks. I do think in the matter of the next few years, we absolutely could. And this is why and again, look, I know not everyone is as interested in this Canadian politics shit, but I plan to dedicate at least a portion of my content towards pushing Canadian politics to the left, because there's not enough of it. And if we have leftists advocating in different countries, not just America, all over the world, advocating for more leftist policies, and if more leftist policies get enacted all over the fucking world, that objectively has a better effect. That's objectively, if we have, guys, in Canada, we're right now talking about pharmacare for all and dental care for all, okay? America doesn't even have Medicare for all. Imagine how much sillier America looks when all of its citizens have dental and Americans don't even have fucking basic coverage. And imagine the wave of leftist advocacy and excitement and you know, if like actual leftists are getting elected in other countries. Imagine that. Imagine being an American leftist being able to say, you know what? Jagmeet Singh of the NDP party just got elected in Canada. All right. People want these leftist policies. They're popular and they work. And they're our only hope if we want to fix this shit that we're in. We've experimented with far-right policies for a long time, haven't we? A lot of countries have. We've been so far to the fucking right, you can't even see the left in most countries. We gotta convince people to at least take a chance on the left. Because I think we can do good things. Because of socialism and communists, I heard that way too many times here in America. It's just socialism and communism. Yeah, they're going to use those talking points. They're definitely going to do that, but like, so what? Okay. I think Annie's live. Whoa, not this. Did Annie go live? Or is she waiting for me? Nope, Annie's live. All right.
Hello, Sid.
Yeah, she's doing that with Tav. You know what? I'm going to continue doing my election coverage shit here, because, whatever. Not everyone wants to watch this, but I think it's good to have out there, and hopefully, maybe Hopium Nuggets will make some clips of this, so we can have some good Canadian political clips to put out. I want to vote out Hetty Fry. But I don't know if that's possible. Who? What? I don't know what you're talking about specifically. But what up, Forbidden Fruit Basket? How's it going, yo? That's why they don't want to give everyone health care and education for all. Oh, because socialism and communism. Yeah, well, we got to show them that shit works. And that, by the way, socialism is kind of based. Like, you can convince people, and I do agree, like, using the words like socialism probably doesn't help. I think it's very good that Singh isn't going out being like, we need socialism today. No, he's talking very specific policies, which are very good. Yeah, Annie's live. Annie's doing a thing. I want to cover the rest of this debate, the beginning part that we didn't get to, because there's a few things I want to talk about. We'll watch it we'll speed it up a little bit. And yeah, let's finish this out, because I want this on the record, you know. This is important. And it's not important to everybody. Not everyone finds it as important, but like, this is my country's politics, all right? And, you know, it not only affects the lives of Canadians, it affects the rest of the world. It does. It has an effect on the rest of the world. And so I think it matters, you know? She's the Lib in Vancouver Centre and longtime incumbent. Damn. Well, I guess just campaign for her NDP opponent in that district and make the case to people of why and the NDP would be better. Because they probably would be. I'm not familiar with the politicians of that district, but further left is usually more based than Lib. So, yeah. Anyway, let's take a look at, let's look at the beginning of this debate. Because, yeah, when I started going live, like, it was already, like, halfway through, so. All right. Let's skip ahead to, actual, like, the debate. Yeah, they're just standing there. They're just standing there. All right. Jagmeet's picking his nose. Nice. Based. Probably scratching it. I love that. I always hate them. Like, I'm always like, I always feel weird about scratching my nose in public because like, you're just kind of like conditioned in society. Like, if anyone's hand goes here, it's like, you're picking your nose. Like, I'm not. I'm fucking scratching it. It's itchy. Okay? It's fucking itchy. I don't know why noses get so itchy all the goddamn time, but they do. All right? I love how I'm mad about it, but I was literally calling out Singh for it. All right.
You try to open up the tree.
All right. Let's leaders debate.
Leaders debate. Conceded trees path. The president of the Angus Reid Institute and
yeah, I don't care.
And Global News.
Let's get to like questions.
4 undecided journalists. So before we begin, please answer the questions you're asked. Do not interrupt each other. Don't want to cut you off, but I will if I have to. Okay.
See, by the way, I will admit, because someone in the chat pointed out earlier that they're doing a better job with this like civility shit than America. That's true, but like they still all broke the rules. They all interrupted each other. They all answered different questions than they were asked. Every single one of them. But none, of course, more than a Trudeau and O'Toole, of course.
Okay. All right. Let's get started.
Leadership and accountability.
You will each get a different question, and you have 45 seconds to answer. You all have a countdown clock. The theme is leadership and accountability.
All right, let's hear their all their nothing answers.
And Mr. Singh, you are first. Hi, Mr. Singh.
Hi there.
All right.
Mr. Singh, you are popular and you inspire many Canadians, but your platform is full of big promises. And when it comes to how you'll pay for it all, there's not a lot of details.
Tax the rich.
Given this,
tax
how
the
can
rich.
Canadians know that you are really ready to lead?
I really appreciate the question, and I want to say good evening to everyone tuning in. There is a serious question that people are asking themselves in this election. They're wondering who's going to pay the price of this pandemic and the recovery. And we do have bold plans about how we can invest in people. But we are the only party with a credible plan that will not put the burden on people, that will not cut the help that they need, unlike Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole, who voted against making the ultra-rich pay their fair share. We believe that billionaires should pay their fair share. We should end the loopholes and the offshore tax havens that mean billions of dollars are lost, that we are not able to invest in people. We want to put the burden on those that are at the very, very top so we can invest in the solutions that people need. Tackling the climate crisis, investing in housing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Singh. Next to you.
So I'm glad. See, I didn't see that when I was originally watching it. So I was like annoyed that he wasn't giving that answer more. But like, I'm glad that it was the first thing he said, and he was the first one to speak. So that'll hopefully stick in a lot of people's minds. You know, he wants to tax the rich. He wants to end these this bullshit, this offshore tax haven bullshit. A lot of rich people don't pay their fair share. And if we got them to pay their fair share, we could absolutely fucking get shit done. We could afford a lot. Do I have to bring up the Jeff Bezos billionaire, the Jeff Bezos wealth comparison thing? You guys all remember. It was huge. Huge. All right? These billionaires have a a ridiculous and an unimaginable amount of wealth compared to what average people do. Like, there's absolutely enough to go around. There's enough to pay for what we need to. We just need to stop letting these people, these rich fucks, game the system. So hell yeah. And we absolutely need a politician with that attitude in office. Again, even if they get very little done, having that attitude in office will rally the people behind a more anti-billionaire sentiment. And I do believe that the NDPs, if they got in power, would do something. I don't think they do like an amazing job. It'll be hard logistically to make sure that the rich are forced to pay their fair share, but it's not impossible either. There's ways to do it. Like Bernie, I like Bernie's plan of like taxing Wall Street. I don't know if there's an equivalent we could do here in Canada where there's like a specific thing that we could tax that specifically affects rich people more than others. But there probably is. There's probably ideas there that even if we can't force them to pay their taxes, which I think there are ways that we could, that there's still you know, even if we can't force them to pay their taxes, we can still like tax shit that they use, you know? She said Singh makes big promises, but I don't think so. No, this is the neoliberal attack towards his type of politics. And Bernie gets the same kind of shit. Oh yeah, you promise a lot of shit, but it never happens. And that, by the way, that argument is very that argument works on people here in Canada very well. When you say, oh, well, this person's promising all this, but they're not going to deliver. People go, yeah, you know, that's true. The Liberals always say they're going to do stuff and they don't deliver. So why should I believe an NDP when they say they're going to do something? They're probably going to be just as bad. And that sucks. We need to change that attitude. Definitely. Hang on one second. I'm going to, we'll keep playing it.
Mr. Trudeau, because you wanted a new mandate, you plunged the country into an election even as the pandemic spurs thousands of new cases. But over the last 18 months, opposition parties have largely stood with you, putting the nation above politics. Why aren't you doing the same? How can you justify an election at this time?
Damn.
Thank you, Ms. Curl. I think, first of all, I want to thank Canadians for being here tonight and making an important choice.
Oh, shut up and
also,
answer the
quite
question,
frankly,
you
for everything
smug
you've done
bastard.
over the past number of months to help get ourselves and our neighbors through
Fuck
this.
you. Answer the
Tonight,
question.
Over the next couple of hours, you're going to hear some very, very different, very strong ideas that are radically different about how we're going to move forward through this pandemic to end it, how we're going to build back better. Those decisions are going to be taken by your government now, in the coming weeks, this fall, not a year from now, not 2 years from now.
Could it not have waited a few months, Mr. Trudeau?
I know you want to go harder and faster on vaccinations. I know you want to go harder
Yes,
and
it
faster
could
on
have.
climate change, and you get to choose exactly that in this election.
All right, that's time. Thank you. Mr. Blanchet, to you.
Wow. That was not an answer. That was not an answer at fucking all. We're going to build back better. We're going to do things. We're going to do good stuff. Off topic, OMG, I love your outfit. Thank you. Hells yeah. I love it too, yo. It's sexy. Hells yeah. I love this skirt. Yeah, that wasn't an answer. Like, Jamie, please vote against Justin Trudeau. Oh, I absolutely am. Like I said, I'm voting for Singh. I'm voting for the NDP party. He's so empty, it's cringe watching him. Yeah, like that. Like, holy fuck. Like, what a non-answer. Why did you call an election during the pandemic? Why couldn't it have waited a little bit? Why now? We know why now. Because your approval rating was briefly really high. And the ironic thing is, this killed his approval rating. It did. This tanked his fucking approval rating, which was the very factor that he was relying on when calling this election in the first place. Because he thought, hey, if I call this election, we're doing really good in the polls right now, so I can get more liberal support. We can get more liberals elected. We can have more power in the government. It was stupid. It's not going to work. He should have been smart enough to realize it wasn't going to work. Because that's going to be the first fucking talking point of every single one of his opponents. Why would you do... You saw how much trouble calling an election in the middle of a pandemic caused Americans. We still have people running around saying that the results of the election are illegitimate because of the mail-in voter fraud ballot scandal or whatever the fuck they think happened. It was a major fucking issue of contention. And the idea of having to go to the polls during, like, a pandemic. Again, we have mail-in voting, and I guess we're definitely a more mature country than America. Don't get me wrong, because way more people are down with mail-in voting here and are less fucking hyperbolically fucking opposed to it. But it's still it's still an issue. People are still going to be going to the polls. There's always going to be people who think that, like, no, if I want my vote to be counted properly, I have to go to the polls. This is just stupid on so many fucking levels. Justin Trudeau is an embarrassment, and this is why he deserves to lose, but he deserves to lose from the left, all right? He deserves to have the NDPs beat him out. The Conservatives probably are going to beat him out. That looks like the most likely outcome right now, unfortunately. I don't think that's a reason to jump ship from the NDPs and vote Liberal, though. I don't know. Make the decision in your specific area, I guess, depending on, you know, who's running where you are and who has a better chance of winning and what they're planning on doing. Like, if you have a Conservative in your area that wants to ban abortions in your city and he's at risk of winning, then yeah, absolutely vote for the Lib. But I do think, like, it's important to, like, be strategic in this, and yeah, I want to give as many strategic votes to the NDPs as possible, because this should not be our representation from the left. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't. The Liberal Party is an embarrassment. Justin Trudeau is an embarrassment, and we deserve so much fucking better.
Deny that Quebec has problems with racism, yet you defend legislation such as Bills 96 and 21, which marginalize religious minorities, Anglophones, and allophones. Quebec is recognized as a distinct society, but for those outside the province...
Yeah, like I said, whatever. The Bloc is racist. They're racist. There's no point listening to their fucking side of this shit. I don't care.
You?
By itself for Quebec.
All right, thank you, Mr. Blanchette. Ms. Paul, to you? For millions of voters...
I don't care about this either. Let's get to O'Toole. I don't want to watch this entire thing.
That will be in charge of a
Conservative Party.
Go back.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. And to you, Mr. O'Toole, that will be in charge of a
Conservative Party. And we have a plan to get the country back on its feet after a difficult 18 months in this crisis. I'm a pro-choice ally to the LGBTQ.
By the way, again, he's pro-choice. He's an LGBTQ ally, supposedly. But is his party? Are the people in his party aligned with those values? The fact is, no, they're not. No, they're fucking not. And look, is it better to have a supposedly more progressive head of a party full of crazy people? Sure. But you still don't want to put those crazy people in power. So I do think it's important. Pay attention to who's running, where you are. If there are conservatives in power that are anti-choice, or whatever issue, you know, make that calculation, because conservatives in power is still dangerous.
Community that comes from my service in the military, where I served alongside people from all backgrounds.
The system in the U.S. doesn't really provide for delaying or canceling elections. It's just not done. No. See, this isn't... here's the thing. I don't know how many of y'all know this. In Canada, you can call an election pretty much whenever. The Prime Minister has the power to call an election pretty much whenever. In fact, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think any leader of a party could call an election, if I'm not wrong. But I know the Prime Minister can. And the Prime Minister the Prime Minister can call an election. Trudeau made the decision to call an election. His term was not up. His term was not up. He didn't have to call an election. He called an election now because his poll numbers were up. And so this entire election is Trudeau's fault, 100%. Whatever the outcome of it is going to be Trudeau's fault. And by the way, even if Trudeau ekes out a victory right now, he's still going to lose in the long run. I don't think he's going to end up with more seats than he originally had. I think he's going to end up with less. And this entire election is going to be an overall loss for him, which I think he deserves. I think he fucking deserves. This is, again, embarrassing.
Orientations, putting the country first. And our platform, including a detailed plan on climate change, is about making sure we secure the future. Jobs, accountability, national leadership on mental health.
So is it you, sir, or your caucus that's driving the bus?
I am driving the bus to make sure we get this country back on track. And I'm here to defend the rights of all Canadians, women, members of the LGBTQ community, Indigenous Canadians. I want to make sure we all secure a future together.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. All right, leaders, thank you. It is now time for our first face-to-face debate. Mr. Trudeau, Ms. Paul, you're up. Starting with Mr. Trudeau, based on this question. You call yourself a feminist, but on your watch, sexual misconduct in Canada's armed forces continues to run rampant. Tell me, why are you allowing these unacceptable conditions to continue?
I think we recognize that there are systems and institutions that need to change across the country, and that's why, from the very beginning, we stepped up with policies, new policies, stronger policies and processes to support every survivor, everyone who comes forward, because nobody deserves to work in a workplace where they are being discriminated against, where they are being harassed or hassled. We have been unequivocal about that. My leadership has been unequivocal about that. Yes, these problems continue in workplaces across the country, particularly in the military. That's unacceptable, which is why we've taken even stronger measures.
This sounds like a PR answer.
We're relying on process in this. We want to just be able to have easy answers.
Ms. Paul, what's your response to that?
With easy answers. You have to fall back on process.
I have said before, and I'll say again tonight, that I do not believe that Mr. Trudeau is a real feminist. A feminist doesn't continue to push strong women out of his party when they are just seeking to serve. And I will say their names tonight and thank them. Thank you, Jane Philpott. Thank you, Jody Wilson-Raybould. Thank you, Selena Cesar-Chavez. And I'm here tonight thanks to the work that you have done. I believe that if there were more women on this platform tonight and in previous years, that we, in fact, would have better laws in our military. We would have childcare at this point. We would have many of the things that we need. I am the only woman, other than Elizabeth May, to be on this platform in the last 18 years. The Liberal Party has never had a woman lead it. I think it's time for the party to examine its priorities.
I won't take lessons on caucus management from you. I think what I will keep focused on is making sure that our first woman finance minister has moved forward.
Well, that was condescending. I won't take lessons on caucus management from you. Like, what? What are you... like, no, she makes some good fucking points. Who is that talking? She's the leader of the Green Party. She's not going to win. She has zero chance of actually winning. But she makes some good points. She is pretty fucking based. I do like her. In fact, I actually kind of like her from what I've seen so far, maybe a little bit more than Singh. But the fact is the NDPs have way more pull and way more of a chance of actually being viable. Yeah, I'd vote for her too. But I strategically I plan to put my vote with Singh, with the NDP party. If the Green Party gained more viability, I'd consider it, but yeah, they don't have much now, unfortunately.
Mr. Trudeau, I'm sorry, that's time. We have to move on. Mr. Blanchette, Mr. O'Toole, and Mr. Singh, this next topic is for you to debate. Canada's transition to a green economy depends on pipelines. At a time when Ontario and Quebec face uncertain energy supply over Line 5, this country cannot extract nor distribute oil domestically. Our theme is leadership. Tell me, which one of you is best to lead on these complex issues? Mr. Blanchette, per the draw, you begin.
I'm not very much interested in leading Canada. However, I am very much interested in making sure that Quebec...
See, by the way, that is the biggest problem with the Bloc Québécois. They are not concerned with leading Canada. They don't care about the rest of Canada. They care about Quebec. And that's why, honestly, they shouldn't really be taken all that seriously, and they're really not. I don't care about Canada. All I care about is Quebec. All right? We're going to have Quebec. It's going to be wonderful.
Is entitled to its own vision for the future. You know, in Quebec, we do not have energy issues that much because we are lucky. We are lucky. It's a bit of luck that we can produce green energy in a large amount. But the whole planet cannot afford this idea.
Well, then why not expand that to the rest of Canada then? Wait, oh, the rest of the world can't afford it? So what's your solution?
This very Canadian idea, this very conservative idea, and as far as I know, this very liberal idea that we have to produce more oil, export more oil, believing that the money from it will reduce gas emission, which won't happen.
All Canadian families deserve an economic recovery, including families in Western Canada that feel left out after 6 years of Mr. Trudeau. When it comes to leadership, our natural resources sector is a leader in environmental social governance. Anytime Canadian resources are removed from the global supply chain, you know who fills that gap? Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Russia. All of these organizations and companies are getting their emissions down. Let's get emissions down and Canadian resources to market so that we can have jobs, opportunity, and fight climate change.
Mr. Singh.
When it comes to leadership on the fighting this essential crisis, one of the biggest crises we're up against, we've got a difficult choice for Canadians. You've got on one side someone who doesn't believe there's a crisis, and then on the other you got Mr. Trudeau who doesn't act like there's a crisis. And what it's going to take is real leadership, because the solutions are there. We can invest in green energy, clean energy. We can invest in renewable energy.
Doesn't give up on tens of thousands of workers
We'll
across
never
the
give up
country.
on workers.
We're workers that are working hard for their families, so we can get our resources to market.
Okay, one at a time, gentlemen. Mr. O'Toole, then back to you, Mr. Singh. Mr. O'Toole,
I
then
want
Mr.
to
Singh.
see Canadians get back to work in all sectors and in all regions. And I'm proud of what we produce in our country, whether it's our resources or the resources in the heads of our young people.
But
we
these
need
workers
to
need
get
a plan.
emissions down
Mr. O'Toole,
and get our
these
energy to
workers-
market.
These workers need a plan that's going to create jobs for the future. And that's a responsibility of government. We've seen 6 years of Mr. Trudeau, and workers can't afford another 4 years. What we need to do is invest in a diversified economy, clean energy. We need to electrify transportation. We need to invest in retrofitting homes and buildings. We need to
have
create
an
good
incredible
jobs for
innovation
workers
plan
now.
but we
And
need an
can't
economic
allow these two
recovery
folks
in all sectors.
that have failed
Leadership
workers.
is not only-
Last word to you,
and Mr.
Mr.
Singh.
Blanchet. Last word to you, sir.
Leadership is not only saying the words, it's proposing solutions, admitting a problem, which they're not doing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, but Singh did admit the problem and propose solutions. I don't know what he means by they. I guess he's talking about the Liberals and the Conservatives, which sure, but the Bloc is not a good alternative, whereas the NDPs are. Yeah, no, it's true. It's that the conservatives don't think there's a problem, and Liberals don't act like there's a problem. That's why, again, we need to go further to the fucking left, where most of us realize the problem and want to fucking fix shit.
Next question is for all of you. We've had some encouraging news out of Kabul overnight with the escape of 43 Canadians. That said, thousands of people who helped Canada during Canada's mission in Afghanistan have been left behind in their hour of need, and it is unknown if we will ever get them all out. To each of you, what would you have done differently? Mr. O'Toole, per the draw, you begin.
Ooh, let's hear
Canada
it.
should never leave behind people that are at risk because they helped us. When Afghanistan was falling, there were 1,200 Canadians and hundreds more translators and others waiting for help from Canada. What did Mr. Trudeau do? You called an election, sir. You put your own political interests ahead of the well-being of thousands of people. Leadership is about putting...
See, this is why O'Toole might win, by the way. Because that's a very good rhetorical point. When it comes to Afghanistan, okay, so that, like, unless there's pushback on it, because, yeah, I'm pretty sure, like, the Afghanistan shit was already happening when Trudeau decided to call a fucking election. And that's, again, yeah, it's really fucking dumb. We should have been focusing on what to do about Afghanistan, not, oh, let's see if we can get more power because our poll numbers are up. Like, holy fucking shit. Yeah, O'Toole might actually win because if he can, like, continue to with this line of attack on Trudeau and then follow it up with actual solutions that resonate with regular people. A lot of people, because you got to remember, unfortunately, a lot of Canadians do still view it as like the dichotomy between liberal versus conservative. And like, this is just like, this doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. They're just like, no, I got it. This guy or this guy, red or blue, you know? And they're both garbage. They're both fucking garbage. I don't want red or blue. Give me orange, yo. Hell yeah.
Others first, not yourself. Mr. Trudeau, you should not have called this election. You should have gotten the job done in Afghanistan.
Mr. O'Toole, as of the beginning...
Hold on. This is not open debate, leaders. This is a situation
I do agree with
we're
that
asking
point,
a
though.
question to each
He
of you.
shouldn't have
No
called
problem,
this
Mr.
election.
Trudeau. I'm trying to keep track
I would
myself.
like him, Ms. Curl, because he called an election in the fourth wave of a pandemic with fires in British Columbia and with unfinished business in Afghanistan,
All
Mr.
right.
Trudeau.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. I'm going to give the opportunity next per the draw to Mr. Singh. You guys will have tons of time to debate. So
Trudeau
hang tight,
doesn't
Mr.
even
Singh.
get to respond. Base.
Sadly, what's happened in Afghanistan is a tragedy that was something we knew about. We knew about the withdrawal date. We knew from President Biden what that date would be. And sadly, I agree with Mr. O'Toole on this one point that it was a bad decision to call an election while this crisis was going on, particularly because we've got allies on the ground that put their lives at risk to support our Canadian forces who are now looking at peril for their lives and may never get out of Afghanistan. We know the impact on women and girls in Afghanistan. It's heartbreaking, and it could have been avoided. Veterans had told Mr. Trudeau and his government for a long time that the current approach was not working. Those calls were not heeded, and as a result, we're in this really horrible situation.
Thank you,
It could have
Mr.
been
Singh.
avoided.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Blanchet.
First, good news. I seem to understand from what I read a few hours ago that Kabul airport is now being open for some people to get out.
So, yeah,
of the
I
country,
think
which is
Singh gave a
which is
very good
news.
response
This should
there.
have been worked a long, long time ago. I agree with Mr. O'Toole that Mr. Trudeau should have put those people in trust before.
See, like I said, when Singh goes after Trudeau, it's usually far more pointed. Like, O'Toole will just like, well, Trudeau did this or Trudeau didn't do that. And Singh will usually much more respectfully be like, well, I actually agree. I don't think Trudeau did a very good job. And see, here's what we actually need to do. That's good. We need more of that. More of that. Come on.
However, the problem is that Canada has failed many times to create some strong partnerships with other countries in order to be stronger facing a situation like Afghanistan now, because by itself, we must admit, Canada is not a world power.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchet. Mr. Trudeau, I invite you to respond now.
Thank you, Ms. Curl. It's unfortunate to hear the members, the leaders on this stage talking down the incredible work that our Canadian Armed Forces, that our diplomats, that our consular officials did from the beginning of the summer to ensure that as of the very beginning of August, well before this election, we were getting flights out of Afghanistan. We got 3,700 people out of Afghanistan. And over the past weeks, we've been working with the Qataris, for example, on exactly that good news that we've seen of more people, more Canadians getting out of Afghanistan. We work closely with our allies because we know Canadians sacrificed in Afghanistan for...
Now, I will say, I've been criticizing him for being on the defensive with every question that he answers. I think this one is a little more justifiable, like him talking about, oh, well, we did this, we did that. But he's still not responding to the point that, like, calling an election during all of this shit that we're going through, like, was irresponsible. Like, really, really irresponsible and stupid. And... again, is going to end up losing him. He's not going to benefit from it in the end. And so I guess that's karmic justice right there, at least.
Better future. We need to stand by the people who helped us, who helped themselves, and we will with even more people coming to Canada in the coming months.
All right, Mr. Trudeau. Ms. Paul.
As a former diplomat and with a husband who provided advice on the peace negotiations in Afghanistan, we were hearing the stories all the time in the months leading up that this was foreseeable. And so it seems like we got better information on our smartphones than Mr. Trudeau got from our entire intelligence service based on what he's
True.
saying. The thing is...
By the way, yeah, a lot of people saw... Vosh fucking predicted exactly what would happen when we pulled out from Afghanistan. Everyone was like, oh, well, you know, our generals, you know, we talked to our military experts and, you know, they all thought that this would be fine and nothing bad would happen. Like, come the fuck on. Anyone with a brain could have told that this was going to have negative repercussions. Again, didn't mean that Biden shouldn't have done it, but the way he did it should have been different. And, you know, it just, okay.
Is that when people count on you, when you make a promise to them, then you do it so that people
This
can
chick is
count on
based.
Canada's word. When someone is your partner, you go with them, you go for them, or you don't amount to much. And so leaving behind people in Afghanistan, rocking up to Rito Hall and calling an election under these circumstances was not the right thing to do. And to borrow a line from Mr. Singh from 2019, Mr. Trudeau could just say, hey, man, I messed up.
All right, Ms. Paul, thank you very much.
He could, but he won't. He won't, because he's a politician. And politicians never admit fault, all right? But imagine the fucking overwhelming amount of respect that people would have for them if they did. Yeah, I wish we lived in that world too.
Thank you all. And now it is our time for a first attempt at open debate. Jumping off of this question, Michael
let's do
Kovrig
it.
and Michael Spavor have been in Chinese prisons for 1,004 days. The next prime minister has key decisions to make about our already tense relationship with China, such as telecommunication security and foreign investment. Some say this all comes down to a trade-off between Canada's economic growth and recognition of human rights. I'd like to know where you all stand. I'm sure you want to exchange on that. Mr. Singh, per the draw you begin. Leaders, you may jump in.
Thank you very much. We know that we can't imagine what it is for Mr. Spavor and Mr. Kovrig to be going through 1,000+ days in a prison without access to human rights. I can't imagine what their friends and their families are going through right now. All I know is we have to do everything possible to secure the release of these 2 Canadians. We need to work with our allies, apply pressure, and make sure that we return these Canadians home. That's what we've got to do.
And that's exactly what we've been doing. Over the past 3 years, we have worked with international allies to put pressure on China in every single one of their meetings. We've worked closely with the United States. We, at the G7 a few weeks ago, worked with the international community to make sure we're moving forward on challenging China where necessary in human rights, competing with them economically where we need to, and holding them to account on the rule of law as a global community. And Canada's voice has been very strong on that.
Canada's voice has been absent, Mr. Trudeau. We have not worked with our allies on Huawei. We have not stood up for the 300,000 Canadians in Hong Kong. We've not fought for the 2 Michaels and put pressure on the communist regime. We have not stood up for human rights. Sir, you did not show up for a vote declaring a genocide towards the Uyghur people. You didn't show up. Canada is the country that was leading the fight against apartheid. We created the UN Human Rights Code. We should be leaders for our values, sir. And you've let the Michaels down, and we have to get serious with China.
If you want to let the Michaels and get the Michaels home, you do not simply lob tomatoes across the Pacific. That is what Mr. Harper tried for a number of years and didn't get anywhere. You need to engage in a sophisticated way with our allies every step of the way.
You have to take the same position on Huawei,
and that's exactly
on steel,
what we have done
on
every step of the time.
Mr. O'Toole.
Cyber security, Mr. Trudeau. We are out of step, and our allies are wondering where Canada's gone. You started as Prime Minister saying you admired China.
I'm coming to you, Ms. Paul. Just a second. I want to get to Mr. Singh and then to you, Ms.
It does seem like O'Toole is a
I
Stephen
wanna also
Harper
we're talking about leadership
conservative,
and
very
accountability.
much.
And in this pandemic, one of the moments I think of leadership that has been a failure is the fact that when we talk about leadership, it means finding solutions. And in our long-term care homes here in Canada, we saw the worst conditions in
Mr.
for-profit.
Singh, we're going to have
That was
time to chat with
completely-
that later. The topic is China, human rights, and economic growth. To you, Ms. Paul.
Yes, and this is an area where certainly lines are being redrawn all across the
Maybe he was
world.
gonna
And
make a good
the main
point.
thing that
Fuck
Canada is
you.
going to
I don't
have
know.
going
Whatever.
forward in terms of currency is its word. When we make a promise, we have to keep those promises. That's how, when we need help, we get it. You know, my mom grew up on a farm in a small community, and she learned very young and taught us that you have to give your word
that
to
was
your
a
neighbors,
miscalculation
and they have to be
on
able to
his
count on
part.
it so that when you need help, they're there for you. And so when we don't show up, when we're asked for vaccines from COVAX, and then we take vaccines from COVAX, when the Uyghur ask us for help to declare a genocide, and we don't do that, when we don't show up on the climate by setting targets that are ambitious, but at the same time in line with our international partners and do our fair share, then our word doesn't count for much, and then it makes it very hard for us to help people like the Michaels when they need us the most.
Mr. Blanchet, did you want to get in on
Throwing
this?
tomatoes might not be the solution, but I would submit humbly that doing nothing might not be the solution either. The Mr. Trudeau's record on human rights is not perfect. We might name the 2 Michaels, we might name Uyghur in Xinjiang, we might name Taiwan, Hong Kong, we might name Catalonia and Mr. Puigdemont, we might name the worst of all,
Mr. Blanchet.
Raif Badawi being still held in Saudi Arabia because Canada wants to sell weapons and military supply to Saudi Arabia.
By the way, I'm not even going to pretend to know what to say on Canadian foreign
The
policy.
Parliament
I'm not.
voted unanimously to give citizenship to Raif Badawi. Nothing has been done afterward.
All right. Whoa. Mr. O'Toole, Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Singh.
Mr. Blanchet is correct. Canada is needed back on the world stage. We may be smaller than China with respect to population and economy, but we are a giant when it comes to our commitments to human rights, to dignity, and to the rule of law. And we have to start working with our allies to take a more serious approach for human rights, standing up for our workers on fair trade, and making sure that our voice is a principled one on the world stage again.
The problem with Mr. O'Toole and his principles is he
That's
says
an
all the
interesting
right-sounding things. He's
talking
working on-
point that like you hear constantly like in Canadian politics is like we're one of the leaders in human rights. You know, like Canada, oh, look at us. We're so progressive. We're so woke, guys. And it's gotten to the point where, like, even conservatives are fucking using that talking point of, like, look how woke we are, guys. But, like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say in regards to, like, Canada on the national stage or whatever. Michael Spavor shouldn't be in jail at all. I don't know anything about that, but you're probably right.
On reassuring everyone that he's right there as a strong leader. But he can't convince his candidates to get vaccinated. He can't convince his MPs to
All right, let's keep the theme. Mr. Singh, you wanted to get in. I'm giving the last word. I'm giving the last word to Mr. Singh. Mr. Trudeau, please. To you, Mr. Singh.
That is true, by the way. Again, he can't get. He this fucking like he wants to virtue signal and oh look how progressive we are, look how great we are, and this and that. But like the fucking conservatives don't want to get vaccinated. People in his own party don't want to fucking get vaccinated. They don't. They're anti-choice. They're anti. A lot of them don't believe in fucking climate change. So like it just seems like ridiculous for like a conservative to come up here and try to act all fucking progressive when like I don't think anyone believes he's gonna govern that way. Like I don't think his party would let him. So, like, and everything he says has to be taken with a massive grain of salt. Because you have to remember what kind of people he's answering to at the end of the day, what his voter base is. His voter base consists of a lot of far-right extremists. That's probably why the PPC is coming up too as well, because he's doing all this like progressive virtue signaling, and people that primarily vote conservative that are more like, you know, racist, anti-woman, anti-climate change and all that are and by the way, I don't know how my father is voting, you know, but my father is kind of like that. He's a very far-right extremist, and he's been a diehard conservative voter his entire fucking life. And like it makes me wonder, people like that are they going to weigh their loyalty to the party with their underlying values and say, well, do I even agree with what this supposed conservative is saying? And that's probably why the PPC is like growing in so much support, because he's pissing off a lot of his base, which I guess it's good that they're like, you know, leaving the base. So, you know, but there's still too many people within the party that have abhorrent and insane fucking viewpoints. They can't be trusted. Putting their party in power cannot be trusted. All right.
Standing up for the Uyghur in China, it means standing up to defend people around the world. It also means showing leadership when it comes to fighting the climate crisis. We've got the worst record under Mr. Trudeau in the G7. So that's not leadership, certainly not.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, leaders. We are now moving on to our next theme, which is climate change.
Yeah, are we almost caught? I think we're almost caught up.
All right, this time we're starting with a question from Trevor McMullen. He is a high school teacher in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. He's standing by. Trevor, what's your question?
Hey, good evening. As leader, what immediate actions would you take to make green technology more accessible and affordable so that everyday Canadians don't have to bear the financial burden of being environmentally ethical?
All right. Thank you, Trevor. Leaders, you've heard Trevor's question. Ms. Paul,
how do we do
I apologize.
that?
Ms. Paul, you're going first.
This is
Thank
obviously
you so
the
much
most
for that question.
important.
And you know, Trevor, that's exactly
See,
where your head
she
should be at.
keeps
That's where all of our
misgendering
heads should
her,
be
yeah.
at. How can we use this opportunity to seize the moment to create a green economy? How can we incentivize every single person in Canada, every company, and every enterprise to adopt green technologies? How can we become a global leader? And so, absolutely, if you look at our platform, you will see that we propose incentives all the way from buying electric cars, new and used, to retrofitting homes, to all of these items that will help make life easier for you and help for you to do your part. But this is a national and international issue. We need national leadership on it, and we need it across party lines.
Thank you, Ms. Paul. Mr. Singh.
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. I really appreciate the question. And I'm sure you speak to a lot of young people as a teacher and are seeing the fear in their eyes, the worry and the desperation that young people have because they don't know what type of future they're going to inherit. And they're worried about the impacts of the climate crisis because it's hurting us now, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do anything about it. And to invest in that future, we need to make choices. And right now, we look at the choices Mr. Trudeau has made over the past 6 years. He has promised to end fossil fuel subsidies, but instead of ending them, he has increased them to $900 million per year. That is money we could spend on investing in clean technology, in making it easier for people to access that technology, and to do our part to fight the climate crisis. So it's a matter of choices. We can't afford another 4 years of Mr. Trudeau's choices.
Thank you, Mr. Singh.
True.
To you, Mr. O'Toole.
Based.
Thank you for the question.
I think you did a good job again with that.
Strong women who were teachers, and they told me to be straight up. This is an area where the Conservatives, we had to win back some trust. We hadn't met the expectations of Canadians on climate change. It's an important issue for me as a father of a high schooler, and we talk about it all the time. That's why
So what are you
in
gonna do
April,
about it?
long before the election, I put out a substantial package pricing carbon to meet our Paris targets. And what's interesting, our low carbon savings account will allow people to actually make green choices to lower their carbon footprint. This approach is innovative because it would allow all Canadians to know what their carbon footprint is and make those innovative investments to lower it. I think we all have a role to play, and our plan is detailed and we'll deliver on it.
Is that it? That
Thank you
doesn't
very
even
much,
sound
sir.
like a
I
half
hope you
measure. That sounds like a quarter
little bit
measure.
blunt answers. First, you put a ceiling on any production of oil and gas. You take all the money that the federal government is placing into that industry, even more by the Liberals than the Conservatives before, and you put that into green energy. And you take the money for Trans Mountain, and you give it to Alberta for Alberta to initiate its own transition toward a greener economy. This is the way to do things, because if we don't do that and keep dreaming about reducing gas emission while increasing production, we will never get there.
Thank you, Mr. Blanchette. Mr. Trudeau.
Thank you, Trevor, for your question.
Honestly, we should just do, like, all these candidates have decent ideas, and like, I don't like half measures, which is why we need, climate change is such a serious fucking crisis. We need to be taking all the solutions. We need to be working towards all the solutions. Every single person on this stage that has a solution or an idea, we should take them all into account and not just say, well, which one do we want to go with? No, all of them. At anything that can be done to mitigate the disaster that is coming. Anything and everything is what we should be doing. So some of these candidates might have some good points, but like you notice the further left candidates like Singh and Miss Paul both have more detailed plans and like multiple things on multiple levels. We're like, we got to do this, this, and this. Whereas like O'Toole's like, oh, we're going to do this carbon reducing thing. And we have a very, very detailed plan, you know, but like not much there. And again, when you consider the fact that so many conservative politicians don't even believe in climate change, a lot of the people in his own party don't believe in climate change. Like, how are you going to believe that they're going to make substantive change or better steps towards repairing climate change than any of the other parties would? At least everyone in the Liberal Party is aligned on, yeah, climate change is a problem. A lot of the conservatives don't even agree with that. Decent talking points. This is where they sell themselves, and what they actually do and who they actually are is something utterly different. No, I agree with that. But I'm saying like that they're decent points that they are making. And this is what frustrates me so much with politics in general. You hear so many good ideas, but you know that like 90% of them are never going to go anywhere. And when it comes to climate change, we don't have the time to have that attitude. We need to be taking every positive solution into account. And anytime someone gives it another positive solution, it shouldn't be, okay, let's add this to the number of solutions that we're going to pick from. We need to say, oh, let's add that to the list of solutions that we're definitely going to work towards trying, because we basically need to be throwing everything at the fucking wall right now to see what sticks. So my point is, I'm not going to oppose whatever O'Toole's like solution is. I'm just gonna say it's probably not bad, but it's not the only solution, and we need, you know, it's probably not a bad solution. Probably we should add it to the number of things we need to do, but we need to do a lot.
From one teacher to another, I know that you need to ground your decisions and what you share with your students in science. And all these leaders on here have various claims about what their climate change plan is going to do. Unfortunately, if you look at what the experts and the climate scientists and the economists have said, we're the ones with the strongest plan to fight climate change. And how to answer your question specifically, how to make it more affordable.
I'm really sick of him like appealing to experts. Oh, well, the experts agree that we have the best plan. And like, yeah, I don't know what experts he's been talking to, because no, Liberals have not been doing enough for climate change at all. We need to be doing way more, and that's why, again, like the fucking NDPs and the Green Party are objectively going to be better on this issue, because what they want involves doing more, and we're definitely not doing enough. This is basically like Trudeau trying to say, well, look, the experts agree that everything's fine. It's like, what experts? No, we're not doing enough. We're not even close to doing enough. Well, let's hear some more Trudeau fart sniffing.
For Canadians, well, the first thing we did on that was bring in a national.
Here we go again. See, well, we are doing a good job. Here's what we did. See, we did this and we did that and we did. I don't care what you did. All right, I don't fucking care. Canada doesn't care what you did. We're sick of you. We're fucking sick of it. Everyone is sick of it. What are you going to do? Because it is very, very clear. And by the way, the fact that you're going down in the polls, that you're not leading like you thought you would, means that the country is sick of you and your non-solutions. So give us some goddamn solutions or step the fuck aside. That's it. Put forth some actual solutions. Stop fucking bolstering your own fucking shit that you did. Stop like trying to give yourself the pat on the back every, oh well, we did this and I don't care what you did. What are you going to do? Because clearly what you did is not good enough. It's just not.
That incentivizes businesses to go cleaner at the same time as it puts more money in families' pockets. We are going to put a cap on oil sands and oil and gas emissions and decline it until net zero and create those opportunities and investments that are going to make it more affordable for you and your students for many years to come.
What about green energy? What about green energy plans? He didn't say anything about, oh, we're going to put a cap on emissions and we're going to we need everybody on green energy. Everybody. All right? We need to be thinking fucking like, not literally, but like we need to be thinking nuclear with this shit. We need to be thinking fucking like these half measures. Just like, oh, well, you know, we're doing these little good things and we're reducing our carbon footprints and we're trying to lessen the amounts of oil and gas that are used. We need to eliminate it. We need to eliminate fossil fuels. That's what we need to be working towards. We need to be eliminating it. Not to, oh, well, we're reducing it. We need to be working on solutions to replace it. Your PM is bad fart. He is. He really fucking is. He called an election in the middle of a fucking pandemic, in the middle of a fucking Afghanistan crisis. Because he thought his poll numbers were high enough, we'll get more fucking seats. And what happens? The very obvious talking point of, hey, you called an election for no reason in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of several fucking national crises, and you're you suck. You fucking suck. Holy shit. What does Canada have to do with Afghanistan? They were literally just talking about it. That was literally the topic before climate change. Canada, you think every Western nation was involved on some level. Okay, it wasn't just America. And Canada absolutely backs up pretty much everything that America does militarily. Canada was absolutely involved. And there were Canadian troops over there. And you know... and yeah, I believe Canada has a responsibility to now be taking in refugees, just like every other country that was involved in this mess.
Have a good evening. I'm turning it back to the leaders. It is time for more debate. The draw has Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole facing off. Your topic is climate change. Even today, 1 in 4 Canadians don't believe that climate change is caused by human activity. How can we achieve real
and most of those are conservatives.
So many people are still debating the fundamentals. Mr. O'Toole, you begin.
Climate change is a real threat, not only to Canada and to the world. That's why we have to take a serious plan to tackle it. That's why, as I said, we put our plan out in April, because we had to restore some trust on this issue to make sure we can show Canadians we can get emissions down and get the economy working again. That is key. We have a plan to meet our Paris targets, but minimize the impact on jobs and investment. We're also going to make major investments in electric vehicles, in the hydrogen economy, small modular reactors. There is so much we can do to get our emissions down, but grow a strong economy, because without a strong economy, we can't tackle climate change. We can't tackle the issues of today.
The reality that Mr. O'Toole has never understood is you can't have a strong economy unless you tackle climate change. And you ask about how we're going to convince the quarter of Canadians who still don't think climate change is real. Well, Mr. O'Toole can't even convince his party that climate change is real because they voted against that. And that's perhaps why his plan is so weak. His plan is to go back to the Harper targets, to the Harper approach on fighting climate change, which doesn't work. His costed platform, which he just put out last night, cuts $2 billion from climate investments and from things. And for our friends in BC,
you have never made a target.
Has proposed to
let him respond, Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Trudeau, let Mr. O'Toole respond to you, Mr. O'Toole.
Thank you, Ms.
Tanker.
Trudeau does make some good points here. And yeah, we don't need to be going back to Harper level policies, definitely. Also, we need radical fucking change in climate change, all right? Like, radical. Like, we need to be thinking out of the box. We need to be thinking, like, crazy level shit, all right? We need to be doing everything. Not just say, oh, well, you know, we have certain goals and we'll reduce our carbon footprint by this much and blah, blah, blah. No, we need to everything. We need to switch to nothing but electric vehicles. We need to be completely, like, we need a goal. We need, like, a realistic timeline of when can we get off fossil fuels. That's what we need. We need a timeline. We will replace fossil fuels within X amount of years. We need to, like, never going to happen with the Saudi-American alliance. Well, that's why this planet's going to shit. And like, obviously there's money in, like, oil and fossil fuels and shit, and so it's never going to completely go away. At least not until it's too late. But yeah, I don't know what the specific solutions are there, but I know we need a lot of them. Like, a hell of a lot.
Always forgets one fact. He has never made a target for climate change. He has great ambition. That's part of the reason we're in an election in a pandemic, is his ambition. He doesn't have achievement. Well, he never meets his targets.
We have a plan in 2030, so it's actually quite difficult to meet a target that's 9 years away, except for the fact that right now we are on track.
Gentlemen, we have to wrap this segment. All right, we are moving on. We are moving on, leaders. Next up.
They do just look like idiot children. Like, it's it's embarrassing. It is. It's embarrassing. But this is what politics has become, like, in the world, like, in general. It's just two children petulantly arguing back and forth, slinging shit at each other. Cringe.
Is Mr. Singh, Mr. Blanchette, and Ms. Paul. I'd like each of you to describe how you'll implement a national approach that best recognizes the significant regional differences involved in fighting climate change. You begin, Mr. Singh. You may jump in one at a time, please.
Of course.
Well, here's the thing. We just heard Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Trudeau argue about who's worse. And honestly, it's a tough question to answer. Let me tell you, you're not stuck with these two. Better is
true.
Possible. We can invest in a clean economy. We can end fossil fuel subsidies. We can make sure we're creating clean transportation, and we can invest in provinces and territories to make sure they have the resources necessary to fight the climate crisis. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. I'm going to be a dad soon, and I want to make sure my child grows up into a future that has the same opportunities that I had, that has clean air, clean water, a clean place to live. I want to make sure that that's
as far as I understand it, it is not a national or even less a regional issue. It is a planetary issue, and it has to be tackled by everybody at once. But I would be glad to give some of my precious time to Mr. O'Toole, because a week ago, a little more than that, he said in French that he did not want anymore to have a pipeline to go through Quebec. Like, that was quite a statement. He said that in French, no more pipeline through Quebec.
O'Toole isn't part of this debate. I love how he has to. This shows you the single-mindedness, the absolute single-mindedness of this French nationalist party. They don't care to even engage in what we're talking about. Like I love how he even says, "Oh, well, this is a planetary issue. We need to be focusing broaden our efforts on this." But then Literally, the next words to come out of his mouth are the exact opposite. You said you don't want a pipeline in Quebec anymore. And it's like, what? That's not what we're talking about. And you're directing it to O'Toole, who isn't even in this. He's not allowed to respond. But that's how dumb these fucking French nationalists are. It's all about Quebec and getting our little jabs in. Holy fuck. That was almost more embarrassing than anything Trudeau or O'Toole did throughout the entire night. Almost. Not quite, but...
I want to hear that in English tonight.
Oh,
please, please.
Well, Mr.
Hold on. This segment is
quite
frankly, this
we're not gonna let that happen.
This on
like, yeah, I see this. So refreshing. By the way, if that was Trump and Biden up there or whatever, if that was like an American debate, that absolutely would have continued to happen, and he would have answered the question, and it would have like, I love that at the very least, the people in charge of this debate have it somewhat under control. Holy fuck, is that refreshing. Okay. Yeah, fuck the block dipshit. Holy shit.
Quite frankly, this
we're not going to let that happen.
This on the climate, this sort of approach is going to get us nowhere, and I mean but nowhere. It is, and the question was an excellent one. This is a global issue. This is a national issue. This is a nonpartisan issue, and we have got to be able to come together across party lines. I said that I was available for a debate just on the climate because it's that important. But we've invited many times all of the parties to join us.
By the way, I agree with that. We should have a debate just on the climate because, again, that is one of the most important things facing our planet right now.
Joint cabinet, a cross-party cabinet, to deal with this the way that we dealt with the pandemic, together. People were so inspired to see these leaders come together in the early days of the pandemic. We have got to bring that same approach here. Let's come together because that's what's needed.
Thank you very much. I absolutely agree. We do need to come together. I can lay out what we shouldn't do and what we need to do. What we shouldn't do is what Mr. Trudeau did. Set targets and miss them. We shouldn't promise to end fossil fuel subsidies and then increase them. We shouldn't put a price on pollution and then exempt the biggest polluters. What we need to do is end those fossil fuel subsidies, invest in provinces and territories with infrastructure that's going to help us
with the greatest of respect to Mr. Singh.
With the greatest of respect to
let Ms. Paul respond.
With the greatest of respect to Mr. Singh, we have been making this invitation for years, and it has never been accepted by the NDP or any other party.
All right, we have to wrap this section now, leaders. It is time for me.
Okay, that's really like. that comes across as kind of bitter from her. It's just like, well, you know, we've been trying to have this debate for a while. It's good to see that at least Mr. Singh agrees with me. It's like, okay, we get it. The Green Party has been screaming from the rooftops about climate change forever. We get it. All right, we get it. But maybe don't take jabs at the one party that's politically viable that actually agrees with you. Maybe. Yeah, this is my thing, guys. Just so everyone knows. Like, oh my God, you seem so petty when you do that shit.
With great pleasure to welcome Mercedes Stephenson of Global News. She is joining us now, and she's going to be asking each of you a direct question on climate change. This round starts with Mr. Trudeau. Hi, Mercedes.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hello, candidates. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to ask you about a question that is on a lot of Canadians' minds, the question of climate change.
It's so sad that the most qualified of these candidates are at the bottom. Yeah, literally. Like I said, I even, like, at this point, if I could get rid of, if I could just remove O'Toole and Trudeau, the Conservative and Liberal candidates, and then just toss a dice and have it like be equally split between between the other three candidates, and we just randomly get one of the other three candidates as prime minister, I would take that. I would take the 1 in 3 chance that the Bloc Québécois gets in power. Okay, just in favor of that 2 in 3 chance that it'll be either the Green Party or the NDPs and not a goddamn Liberal and Conservative. Okay, I would literally throw those dice right now. Okay, I would risk a 1 in 3 chance of the French nationalists being in power, because at least they're better on issue. Literally, The French dude is better on issues than the conservatives and liberals. Some of them, some of the issues, not all of them, but literally, he's like flanking them to the left on certain issues. It's sad. Yeah, the three candidates on the stage with the least amount of power, the least likelihood of winning, are the most qualified, most reasonable fucking people there. Again, when you look, I'm 50-50 on the French nationalist dude, because some of his shit is really dumb. Other of his shit is actually kind of based. Overall, he doesn't even want to lead the entire country, and he never will. So, you think the Greenie is most qualified? Yeah, probably her and Singh, both of them are like, they're the two we should be choosing between, honestly. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Mr. Trudeau, starting with you. On your watch, Canada's greenhouse gas emissions have gone up every year since 2016, giving this country the worst emissions reduction record in the G7. According to the most recent data from your government, Canada's emissions in 2019 were just as high as they were 15 years ago. Environmentalists say that your performance is insufficient. If you're so serious about climate change, why are Canada's emissions still going up?
We inherited a government from a conservatives.
Just blame the previous fucking government, dude. You've had 3 terms. No, 2 terms. He's had at least 2 terms to fucking like overturn a lot of what conservatives have done. The problem is liberals don't really want to, because look, liberals benefit. Liberals are bought and paid for by the rich just as much as the conservatives are. All right. I think the NDP is most qualified in this case. Oh, no, they absolutely are. Like, I absolutely... There's a reason. I'm voting NDP. I'm voting Jagmeet Singh. Absolutely. We'll be thankful you at least have left-wing voices. We barely get that during the primaries, and it's just standard liberal talking points with no teeth. No, that is true, and it is really good that we actually have these voices. It just sucks that they're not the ones with the most viability.
That did not believe in the fight against climate change, and we had a lot of catching up to do. But what we were able to do in 6 years is bring a national price on pollution, ban single-use plastics, move forward in protecting more of our coasts and oceans and rivers than any government in history.
See, all of that stuff rings hollow when our carbon emissions are up, when we're doing worse than we were 15 years ago, like, right? That kind of all rings hollow. You can say all you want, oh, well, we did these good things, but, like, clearly we're not doing enough. That's overall the criticism of the Liberal Party. You don't do enough. You're not doing enough. And you can sit there and virtue signal all you want about the shit you did do, but it's not enough. And you have to talk about how you're going to do more. Otherwise, the people are going to abandon you, and you're going to deserve it.
And we are right now on track to exceeding those 2030 targets set at the beginning at Paris, down to 36%. And we've gone even further with that, with a concrete plan that the experts have said is the only one that can achieve a 40% reduction.
Which they say you're unlikely to meet.
That is what we're dealing with.
Like this, I hate that he keeps appealing to this. Oh, and the experts, again, I don't care what experts you have that say your plan is perfect and you're a liberal. Your plan probably isn't perfect, all right? I mean, holy fuck.
Okay, Mr. Trudeau. Mr. Blanchet.
Madame.
Your party often criticizes the oil and gas industry in Canada's western provinces. You've said that you would block pipelines trying to go through Quebec. While you were the environment minister, though, you allowed oil exploration and carbon-intensive projects without environmental assessment.
Oof.
So why the double standard, and what do you say to Canadians who feel that you're blocking their prosperity?
Okay, sorry. You know what? He's actually not based. I thought, no, look, he has a couple base talking points, but, like, at the end of the day, he's an idiot. He's a nationalist. He's a fucking Quebec nationalist, all right? Their party is full of racists and conspiracy theorists and crazy people and secessionists who want to, so, like, I don't actually... Look, I think a 1 in 3 chance of him being prime minister is still preferable, but I do want to make it clear. These people are just as crazy, if not crazier, than the conservatives and should not be trusted. Okay? Let's make that clear.
We're 3 issues that have been raised since I've been into this election. First one is having reversed the 9B line of Enbridge, which had been reversed a few years sooner without any evaluation or anything. Second one is a project in Baie des Chaleurs, which already had been submitted to an evaluation, an environmental evaluation. And the other one was to have an environmental, I will come to that, evaluation after the exploration. This is all a build-up made by the previously environmentalist Sylvain Guilbeault from the Parti Libéral, which...
No, I disagree. If you want to secede from the nation that you're a part of, you're probably a traitor. All right. I look. Quebec wants to act like it's the same shit with Texas. It's like, oh well, we're great and we should be independent and we don't want to answer to the tyranny of this government. And it's bullshit. All right. Fuck this like attitude of superiority. Like, no, we're fucking like. Part of me wants to say if they want to leave, let them leave and fucking fall together like they fall apart like they deserve to. But like, it has adverse effects on the country overall and people's well-being and ability to travel and to it would objectively like split up families and shit. And overall, like it would not be good economically for Canada or for Quebec. Traitor, I thought you were a globalist, Smoothie. In the current look, just like in America, states benefit from being a state in the United States of America. In Canada, provinces benefit from being part of the government, all right? And they can sit there all they want and be like, we don't like this treachery, we don't want to follow these rules or whatever, but like they objectively benefit from it, okay? And wanting to be all independent and be all right. Like, I'm a globalist, but first of all, as a globalist, and I'm not like a short-term globalist, I'm like a long-term globalist, so I don't make any short-term political prescriptions to enact globalism because it's not going to happen, all right? But as someone who believes in the general principle of globalism, the driving principle that I believe in behind my globalist tendencies are based on unity and freedom, okay? And I want humanity as to be viewed as one, okay? This is what I believe in as a person, okay? I believe it's good when we look past things like nationality, things like racial background or whatever, and view ourselves as humans, okay? And I don't like putting up barriers between groups of people. Canada is a nation as one. It's a nation, okay? I view it as overall a bad thing to take a piece of a nation and make it its own nation and divide those people. I view that as inherently a bad thing. Or as not inherently, but usually a bad thing. Okay? I don't see any like positive to that. Like, I want to get rid of borders in the long term, not make more of them, right? So of course I'm against, and maybe like the using the language of calling them a traitor, like it's not like the first and foremost argument. I don't think there's a lot of reasons, but I do think it is a betrayal of the people of the country and of people in and outside of Quebec, and just yeah, I just don't like it. And I don't know if it's unconstitutional here. I know in America it's unconstitutional. And it's just like completely indefensible from a legal standpoint. I'm not as well versed on Canadian law, so I don't know how much more legally viable it is here. but I really don't think it should be. Quebec has, been a part of Canada for so long. People travel in and out of Quebec. There are people that, and it's been ingrained in a lot of systems within Canada and the way Canada works. Like it would be largely detrimental to a lot of people if Quebec were to secede. So I am opposed to it on so many levels. All right. Anyway, let's continue. We're almost caught up to where I was when I started this stream, so we're almost done.
The Prime Minister did not even know about when he attacked me with it. My record is also having signed the carbon market with California, which is still considered the best way to tackle the gas emission through incentives and tariffs. Around
wait, well, Quebec's culture doesn't hold back Canada the way Texas does, the way Texas holds back the coasts. I mean, Quebec's culture is kind of not all of it. There are backwards elements to it that do kind of hold back Canada, and I it's based that they gave a movie where an anorexic bulb woman gives bloody mucus-filled birth. PG, like, that's so irrelevant to the broader point. Okay, whatever.
The world,
All right,
at
Mr.
least North
Blanchet,
America.
that is time. Mercedes, your next question.
Mr. O'Toole, you're next. Under your plan, Canada would abandon its current climate target. Instead, you would settle for a weaker one. In fact, it's one set 6 years ago by Stephen Harper. World leaders are meeting this fall to ratchet up their commitments on climate change.
Okay, wait, actually, I didn't read that. Sure, if all you care about is economic prosperity, I think most areas benefit from self-determination. The North is held back by the South. Cut that cancerous tumor off. What about the well-being of people who live in the South who are not backwards far-right extremists? What about the people who are victims of that culture and people who grow up in those areas? See, you could cut the states into two countries if you really wanted to. And say, yep, all the far right reactionaries can move to the South, and all of us, more left leaning, reasonable people can move to the North. But what about when the people who live in the now southern U.S. country, that are born to far right extremist parents, realize that that's bullshit and have their own thoughts or ideas? What about the trans or gay kids that are born to those people who are now stuck in absolutely backwards ass fucking a backwards ass country that doesn't give a shit about its rights? What about the women who will lose abortion rights? Like there's overall harm in just saying, oh, well, you know what? They're backwards. They're different from us anyway. Let them just be their own nation. Because being interconnected, first of all, keeps, like, imagine if like Texas was its own country. All right. Imagine how immediately backward, like Texas is already really backwards. You don't think it could get worse? It could absolutely get worse. At least we have the influence of the rest of the country keeping those states from, like, turning into absolutely insane hellholes. At least we have shit like the Supreme Court to keep certain insane laws from being passed. There's always going to be people that have really undesirable belief systems, and just cutting them off and saying, like, just let you have your own little fucking area where you can be as backwards as you want. There's a lot of negative outcomes to that. A lot of negative consequences.
Change on the global stage, yet you would walk ours back. You've said that climate change is real and you've endorsed carbon pricing, but your target is the lowest of all of the major parties who are here tonight. Why should Canadians settle for your plan and a plan that would take our targets back in time?
Because Canadians deserve to have a plan and leadership to make the targets. Mr. Trudeau went to Paris.
Wait, so I love his logic here. His logic is like, well, we want to actually have targets that can be met, so we're going to lowball it, so we can actually say, hey, look, you know, we're going to lower the bar and be like, look, see, we got under it. We walked right under it. It's fine. Like, or I guess lower the bar and be like, yeah, we met this. Well, we got over. We went over by like 0.2%, right? We went like we're doing good. We reached our target. Yeah, you can. It's easy to reach a target if you lower the bar first. It's easy to reach a fucking target that you set specifically to be an easy target. Like, that's fucking dumb. That's really fucking dumb. No, climate change is a disaster. We need to be going the fact that he points out, oh, Trudeau didn't meet his targets, and his solution is, so we'll set lower targets and then actually meet them and then show that we're doing good. Whereas the argument from the more left-leaning candidates is, no, we need to go further. And that's the correct position, by the way. We don't lower the bar because we didn't meet our standards. We raise our standards and work towards actually meeting them and not falling short. This is why this guy is a joke. Again, I hope most Canadians can see through this bullshit. Because I know most Americans wouldn't be able to.
The targets I'm talking about making are the ones he signed on to, and then for 6 years did not make them. He likes to blame everyone else.
And in 6 years, problems due to climate change only get worse. So why should we be setting our sights at targets that were probably inadequate back when they were set? No, we need to go way further. Now, yesterday, 6 years ago, we needed to raise the bar.
But himself for action. So what we
Yo,
did,
what up, Blaine Hoover? Welcome. We're watching the Canadian debates, yo. the Canadian election debates. Having a lot of fun, yo. Hells yeah.
because as I said, Mercedes, we have to build trust on this issue. We went out and worked with the top consultancy in the country to come up with a plan to price carbon, to get our emissions down to meet Paris, but to also get people back to work. After COVID-19, with $500 billion worth of debt put on by Mr. Trudeau, with a cost of living crisis, we also need to have a strong economy to get our emissions down. We will make our emission targets, and I think it's important for Canada to have a plan to meet what it signs on to internationally.
Oh my God. See, this is bullshit. This is bullshit language. It's basically about optics for him right now. What he's describing is basically like, well, yeah, you see, we want to get a plan that we can actually like brag about the fact that we actually got it done, guys. We want to do something that we can be like, look, see, we met our goal, even if it's not nearly good enough. We want to be able to like virtue signal that, well, we met our goal though. Sorry. Not good enough. Not even close to good enough. What did she ask? She's asking about like climate change and like the fact that he's criticizing Trudeau for not meeting his targets when it comes to lower carbon emissions and better results when it comes to climate change, and he's criticizing Trudeau for that, but yet his plan has some of the lowest targets for carbon emissions and improvements to climate change. So He has the lowest. He has the lowest targets, and he's basically what I said earlier. He's basically suggesting we lower the bar because Trudeau didn't meet what he said he wanted to meet in regards to climate change. So he's saying we should lower the bar even more so that we can say we did it. Which is dumb.
Ms. Paul of the Green Party,
need to be
obviously
doing
environment
more.
a big focus in your plan.
Hell yeah,
calls
let's
for
hear
a
it.
60% reduction in Canada's
hear something
emissions by
based
the year
for a change.
2030. Other countries that are making that commitment don't face the same challenges that we do here in Canada. We live in a cold, northern, sprawling country, and our economy still relies on resource extraction, much of which you've said you would shut down completely in your platform. How would you offset the economic harm that would result from meeting such an aggressive target?
Thanks for the question. And first, let me say that when I think about our future and I think about the future of energy, Canada will remain an energy superpower, but we will be a renewable energy superpower. And I think about my brother who was a roughneck out on the oil patch until the bust during the pandemic. And I think about his future. And I know that we have got to diversify our economy. But I tell the people of Canada today that what happens next is really up to you. We can keep moving towards a mirage, and that is what these promises are, a mirage that's just out there in the distance that we never arrive at. Or you can send people back to Ottawa from every single party who are committed to working together across party lines on the greatest existential challenge of our time and seizing the opportunity of a truly green recovery.
Mr. Singh, you accuse the Trudeau government of being all talk and no action when it comes to climate change.
True.
And yet you won't even give Canadians a straight answer on whether or not you would cancel the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion. You've had years as NDP leader to develop a climate plan. Your platform has lots of big ideas and big targets, but almost no details on how you would get there. Don't you owe...
I hate that because that's not true. But that it's the same thing they do to Bernie. It's this exact same thing they do to Bernie. Oh, well, you have a lot of big ideas and you make a lot of big promises, but you haven't really, you haven't really told us how you plan on getting there. You know, you don't seem to have much of a plan. Where's this plan? And then Bernie will explain his plan and he'll explain it over and over and over. But then every fucking time they'll come out and be like, you don't actually seem to have a plan. Where's your plan, Bernie? This is the standard neoliberal attitude towards any sort of progressivism. All right, no matter where you are, this is the attitude, and it's really fucking gross. But unfortunately, a lot of people buy into it, which is sad.
Canadians a clear answer on your climate roadmap, and will you provide one tonight?
Absolutely, and I'm honored to do so. We've got a bold plan that's going to take a lot of courage, that requires lots of investment, because we know how serious this crisis is. And we know what we're up against. Unlike Mr. Trudeau, we're not going to blame previous governments. We know that in power, we have the power to make a change.
True.
If we vote for the same things, we're going to get the same results. So I want Canadians to know you have a choice. We are committed to ending.
What is your plan, sir?
We'll lay some of it out. One of it is to end fossil fuel subsidies, use that to invest in clean energy. We would make sure we prioritize investing in electrified transportation. We would invest in retrofitting homes and buildings to reduce our emissions.
By the way, he already said some of this earlier. I love this idea. You haven't actually laid out a plan. No, he did. He has been. He has been. He from the beginning of the debate, he has been. But this is like, they'll always like try to attack the left in this way and be like, you don't actually have a solution. And it doesn't matter what we say. We can give you a million solutions, and they'll just be like, no, I don't see a solution, guys. Guess we gotta vote for the lib.
There is so much that we can do. We are confident we can do it. But there is a cost if we continue down the same path of conservative or liberals who don't take this seriously. You have a choice.
All right. Thank you. Now it is time for open debate. Mercedes is going to keep you leaders on theme. I'm going to keep you on time and make sure.
Holy shit, is this coming from a viable candidate? I'm moving to Canada. Yeah, like I've been saying, like it's crazy. The fact that this stuff is being talked about on the national stage. And like I said, look, the unique position that we're in Canada is that the third parties actually do have a chance. The NDP's Jagmeet Singh can actually win with enough enough support. I don't think he's gonna win this election. I think it's gonna be very hard. But I do think everyone should still vote for the NDPs so that they can. The higher percentage they get compared to the liberals, the more we can use that as a talking point and say, look, the people want actual progressive solutions. The liberals are not cutting it. And why the fuck are we going to trust a conservative to be progressive? We can convince people in this country to move further to the left. We absolutely fucking can.
Be heard. Ms. Paul, we're starting with you. Back to you, Mercedes.
And again, it could have a better effect on the rest of the world. We gotta keep pushing for leftism everywhere and anywhere we can.
Canadians want their government to fight climate change, but they also worry about the cost for their families. And we know there will be a cost to this. Why should Canadians trust your party to see us through this?
There is a global green rush going on now to create the competitive green economy of the future. What the Greens don't want to see is Canada being left behind, because that is exactly what's happening. You know, I'm sure that the last candle maker was the person that had the market cornered on candle making, but if everyone has moved on to LED lights, then you're in trouble. And so what we want to see is us seizing this opportunity. And Mercedes, to your earlier question, if Denmark and Greenland, other cold...
It's not likely for our third parties to win, but it's good to prevent anyone from getting a majority vote on anything. Yeah, I mean, look, our third parties can actually have some power in the government. They can actually, like, have some sway the more votes they get, which, again, is very different to how it is in America. I do think like I said, I don't think the NDPs are going to win this election, but I do think it's possible for them to win. I do think if we keep campaigning for them and, you know, pushing them, like if they get a higher percentage than they normally do in this election, which I already expect them to, then we can use that to further move people further to the left than the Liberal Party. Yeah, they have before. It's not impossible. They've won before. It's not impossible, guys. That's the difference. When it comes to, like, advocating for voting for, like, the Green Party in the States, like, you're dreaming there. It's a pipe dream. But here, like, it's actually viable. It's a viable strategy. So why not empower these further left parties and, you know, set a trend towards, you know, more people moving more to the left? I think it's something worth fighting for, definitely.
Countries can end oil exploration, then certainly we can do it. And if 27 countries in the European Union can come together collaboratively to have an ambitious plan for the climate, then surely with leadership we can do the same.
Yeah, they caucus. Also, just getting more seats in general. Even if the NDPs don't win, just getting more seats than they had last time is a win. All right? And like I said, we're already seeing Trudeau is losing a lot of momentum here because he called this election so stupidly. Again, in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of the Afghanistan crisis, all because, you know, he could, and he thought he would get more seats, and it's already hurting him. We gotta push harder. We gotta, like, disempower these liberals by pushing further to the left.
Here in Canada, I know Canada can do anything that any other country can do.
Absolutely. I think we absolutely can.
If any type of energy is removed from the global market, Canadian energy, it's replaced by a bad actor country that doesn't have carbon reduction programs, it doesn't have human rights, it doesn't have engagement with Indigenous communities. Indigenous partnerships in natural resources is huge. So you said the cost. There are tens of thousands of jobs that deserve an economic recovery just as much as anyone else. There are Indigenous partnerships, economic reconciliation, and a move towards a made in Canada net zero by 2050. So let's be leaders in getting carbon emissions down and being world leaders on how
net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Yeah, no, we not only we need to do better than that. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. All right? Half the planet could be underwater by then. Look, is it progress that at least the Conservatives have moved on to, like, taking half measures rather than just pretending the problem doesn't exist? Sure. But it's too little too late. and it's not good enough.
We have natural resources, whether it's energy, timber, rare earth minerals for EVs. We can be world leaders again.
Let's talk about the cost. The cost of inaction is an entire town of Lytton being wiped out by a climate forest fire. The cost of inaction is forest fires and flooding and heat waves that mean Canadians lose their lives. The cost of not acting means a young woman I met in Hamilton who looked me in the eyes and said, what's the point of me pursuing my education? What's the point of me finding a partner or even starting a family when I don't know what type of future I'll live in, let alone my child? That's the cost of inaction. That's the cost of Mr. Trudeau, who had 6 years to do something about this.
Again,
it's not 2 years.
Why we got to do something now?
6 years, and he failed you, and it cost all of us.
Mr. Trudeau.
When we talk about
if we lived in a rational society, that this argument alone would win Singh the entire election. All right, and it would actually be between the NDPs and the Greens. If we lived in a rational, guys, we need to act on climate change. We need. Oh my God, why is that white dude dressed like an Arab dude? Dude, don't be racist. That's Jagmeet Singh. He's really fucking dope. Actually, he's really based, and he's actually a Sikh, and he's not white. I don't know why you think he's a Sikh, yo.
Climate crisis, we have to deal in facts. And one of the facts I need to correct right now that everyone is laid into is we have not missed any of our targets. We are on track to exceeding our targets. And it's important that we are on facts. Secondly,
where's your evidence to back that up, buddy? We're going to exceed our targets? Like, we're not doing bad. We're doing good. We're doing better than good. In fact, we're doing better than anyone has ever done before. We have the best plans. We're making the best deals. Does Trudeau just think he can get away with saying whatever the fuck he wants? And yeah, I think he does. I think Trump has like ruined politics to such a ridiculous extent that like you got politicians like Trudeau now just like appealing to this bit. Oh, we're the best. We're amazing. We're doing the best shit. We're doing more than good, but like no evidence to back it up. Oh my God.
I do have a question for Mr. Singh. We need to talk about science. We need to talk about experts. We agree on that, you and I both. So how is it that the experts that have rated our plan on climate to be an A have rated your plan to be an F?
I rate your track record an F, Mr. Trudeau.
Yeah, these fucking these experts, these liberal experts that I don't know what he hasn't cited any research, any data. Like he just says we have experts, and they say that our plan is better than your plan. Like we have the best people, guys. People. Look, I know people. I have the best people. People say that my plan is better than your plan. It's the best plan. It's number one. It's gonna be good. What? Fuck off. No, your plan is not good enough. Not even close. Not even a little bit.
You had 6 years.
You don't get to rate. Politicians, experts. Why did the experts give you an F on your climate plan?
Let Mr. Singh respond, Mr. Trudeau.
Let me respond to this. You're talking about the future. Let's talk about right now. You had 6 years, and you've got let me finish. You've got the worst track record in all the G7 after 6 years. How can people trust you?
Why didn't you put forward an ambitious plan?
Mr. Singh, Mr. Trudeau, then Ms. Paul, then Mr. Blanchett.
I don't accept that, first of all. I don't accept that at all. We've got a bullet
hold on,
plan
Ms.
and a
Paul.
strong plan.
Mr. Singh, thank you very much, Mr. Trudeau.
Yeah, heated about these things.
He cannot explain why his plan is being panned by experts. Now, every politician up here says, we have the best plan. We actually have a record. And what Mercedes' question was, how do we make sure it's affordable? We brought in a
That is a good point. Every politician thinks they have the best
more
plan.
Money back in the pockets in the provinces where it had to be imposed because conservative politicians fought against it every step of the way.
Ms. Paul,
with the greatest of respect,
I just blame the conservatives too. Like, you need to be pushing more radical fucking climate policies. You just do. This isn't a good excuse at all. You had 6 fucking years. Holy fuck.
The 5 PhDs in our shadow cabinet who put together our green recovery policy would disagree with you, with the experts. But I do want to say more generally that,
True.
again, this is getting us nowhere. We have got to be able to come
Yeah,
together.
when you have actual climate scientists look at shit, they're like, no, half measures are not good enough, not even close. Fuck that. His experts, yeah, okay.
Across party lines, not only to face the existential crisis that Mr. Singh described, but also to seize the greatest economic opportunity that Canada has seen within our lifetimes. We are being left behind. And if the United States can do it, if the European Union...
This whole thing is sped up a little bit because, yeah, the cost is death, destroying the entire biosphere. You can't have a working economy when the biodiversity is breaking down as... that then breaks the GDP of every nation. Yeah, like, this is more serious than this. Oh, well, there might be a bit of economic backlash if we do this. So what? We don't have time. And the actual experts are the ones telling us that. We don't have time. We need to make radical change now. We don't have time to bicker and virtue signal and be like, oh, well, we're going to set goals that we can actually meet. No, we need to meet better goals.
We can do it. I know that we can do it. It's about a change in the culture.
All right, thank you, Ms. Paul. Mr. Blanchet, did you
The
want to
clock
get
shows
in?
that I'm quite behind everybody else, and I have 12 seconds left.
Take some
I will
time,
disagree
sir.
with the basic statement. There's possibility to create more wealth to absorb the cost of the changes that we need. We must stop opposing environment and creating wealth. It may go together well. This is the change that we have to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mercedes. And now, leaders, we are moving on to our next theme, reconciliation.
By the way, I don't agree that they all deserve equal time, okay? They just don't. They don't. I'm sorry. The Bloc Québécois does not deserve equal time to the Conservatives, Liberals, and NDPs. And unfortunately, as based as the Green Party is, they don't either. Like, it sucks. I do want them to have more of a voice and more, like, power in the system, but, like, right now, like, the people need to know, like, of the candidates who actually have a chance of winning, like, who to vote for, and, you know, who stands where on what policies. They say global warming when it's human pollution effects upon the biosphere. They refuse to even speak about it in a scientifically valid manner. It's preposterous how they discuss it. No, it is, and we don't. I think we are caught up now. By the way, I think that was yeah. I think we're caught up on the debate. I think we've covered the entire thing now. In fact, I probably just recovered whatever I did at the beginning of this stream, but that's fine. I have a better handle on everything now. And I was kind of like, I kind of just started this like last minute. I saw this debate was happening, and I was like, should I stream this? You know what? I want to stream it, even because I recognize I'm going to definitely get less viewers than I normally do doing something like this. It's still important. It's absolutely important, and we need lefty perspectives on YouTube talking about this shit, and there aren't any. I can't find any. I'm not saying I'm the only one. I'm probably definitely not, but like the fact that like even if these people do exist, we can't find them in the algorithm, and we don't have a good like lefty Canadian network on YouTube, like that needs to change. That needs to change. And so I'm reaching out. I'm trying any other Canadian content creators out there that want to collaborate, want to talk about shit, want to, you know, offer their perspectives. I'm willing to like collaborate with anybody, because I at least anyone reasonable, because this needs to be talked about, and we need more people on the left on YouTube willing to talk about Canadian politics. I was looking for, I've been looking for it over the last few weeks. I've been like searching on YouTube for lefty content creators. one of the things I found in that search was a channel. I don't remember the channel's name. Some lefty, some Canadian lefty, made a video 2 years ago talking about the fact that there's not enough Canadian lefties on YouTube talking about Canadian politics. And he was talking about how, you know, we need to do that and we need to build better networks talking about these things. And he was like, you know, I'm going to work towards doing that more. And if anyone else out there wants to like work towards doing that more, hit me up and let's connect and whatever, blah, blah, blah. That person, which I agree with all those sentiments, by the way, I looked at that person's channel today because I figured, oh, okay, you were saying this 2 years ago. Okay, so you've probably got some good perspectives on Canadian politics today, right? That person's channel is now entirely about Trump. Like, not, like to a ridiculous extent. Like, this person puts out like 2 or 3 videos a day. Still, now, after Trump is no longer elected, to this day, putting out videos, 2 or 3 videos every day about Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and those people. It is insane the way Trump and American politics has like engulfed the political discussions of everything around it. It's We need more lefties talking about this shit. We absolutely do. We need like, and again, you can tell me there's channels out there that we need lefty Canadians at like Vosh level, at Xander Hall level, heck, at fucking Hassan level. Yeah, we need that. Or at least we need Canadian lefty channels that are in contact with those people. So that those people, and by the way, and I'm gonna say this, if I ever get a chance to talk to Vosh or any of these other bigger creators, I'm going to make the case to them that I think it's important to have at least every once in a while a segment dedicated to what the fuck is going on in other countries, especially when you have big audiences of people who live in these countries, especially Canada and the UK. I think it's very important to talk about Canadian and UK politics. And I think it's really fucking sad and pathetic that a lot of the biggest lefty streamers don't. They just don't. Like, we could be affecting leftism all over the world, but we're so fucking American-centric to the point where Canadians are American-centric. British people are Canadian-centric. Holy fuck. Like fucking Sargon for the longest time, all he did was talk about American politics. He did also get involved in British politics, sure, but like, holy fuck. There's a lot of like British channels out there that are just like all about American politics. We gotta zoom out. We gotta realize, look, American politics is important and it affects the rest of the world. But so does the politics of other countries. So do the outcomes of other elections. And we can't keep letting like elections go by when Canadian lefties or lefties in general could be out there making the case, making arguments for voting for actual leftist candidates in other countries, which could objectively positively affect other countries like America and their policies. And at the very least, the general sentiment of average American citizens, it could absolutely have an effect. And the fact that it's overlooked is a damn fucking shame. So, yeah, this is my, I guess, this isn't what I actually wanted to do in terms of a Canadian politics stream. And honestly, like, I will do another, on one of my next streams, I'm not going to make my next stream about this all about it, but we're going to have a segment, where we're going to go look at, the websites of each, political party, or at least the main 3. And we're gonna dive deeper into some of this shit. I do want to talk about this more in shows where I'm talking about other shit as well, because I feel like if I say, hey, this stream is all about Canadian politics, people aren't going to care as much. And that really sucks, because I think we should. I think we should be paying attention to everything that we can. Yeah, stop focusing on our embarrassing country so much. Yeah, that's what I want to do, yo. There's a lot of incentive to talk about American politics. It affects geopolitics more than us. Sure. But that's not an excuse to, like, especially, like, let our own country's politics go to the wayside. And so I don't know, Skep, like, I really do feel like content creators like you and me, we're Canadian. We kind of have an obligation to at least address this stuff. Like, I'm not saying go make your channel all about Canadian politics if you're a Canadian and, you like talking about politics, but, like, at least dedicate 1 in every 4 or 5 videos that you dedicate to politics on something that affects your own country. Because, sure, it might get less views, it might get less people talking about it, but at least it's there. And when Canadian lefties go searching for content, it's more likely that they'll actually find something worth listening to. Because it's unfortunate, but a lot of people out there are just really looking for someone to feed them their opinion. And having a good leftist perspective on this shit is extremely important. Because not everyone's going to be as politically well-versed. Not everybody is going to do the proper research and look into this stuff. So we need to offer a perspective as leftists and Canadians. And I urge other content creators to please do your best to, do your part, engage. Push a Canadian lefty message, because we can affect change. We can change the discussion. We can contribute to what happens. And we should always be taking whatever actions we can to affect change. This was very interesting. Thank you for this. Absolutely. I'm glad that some of y'all are who aren't Canadian are also enjoying this. The beginning of the stream started a little bit slow, but I feel like this was good. This was fun. We got to dive deep into some Canadian politics. And like I said, I'm going to make this a regular segment. I get it. Not everyone wants to pay attention to it. We won't hyper focus on it, but it does need to be talked about. And I think it's a damn fucking shame that it's not talked about more. So anyway, I'm gonna peace on out of here. Thank y'all for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching the debate with me. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all were educated on some level. I hope this was informative, at least on some level. And I hope to see y'all next time. I'll do a more normal stream tomorrow. And hell yeah. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for chilling. Remember to like, share, subscribe, become a patron if you can. Only $2 a month gets you access to all of our private content over here. Gets you special roles in the Discord and shit. Also consider donating if you can. Helps out. We got Streamlabs. Really fucking helps with shit. Helps keep food on the table, But also, if you can't do that, feel free to join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter. In Discord, by the way, follow our clip channel, Hopium Nuggets. We've got a fan made clips channel where you can see much shorter segments from my streams, clipped and put up there, and you can get them if you join the Discord and get the video notification roll. You can get notified of new videos that go up on that channel. And Hell yeah, it's a good alternative for people who don't want to sit through all my streams. You can get the juiciest bits, you know, the juiciest Hopium nuggets over at Hopium Nuggets. So go subscribe to that. Also check out my producer Straight Up, who helped me make my latest song, Son of a Bitch, which is, by the way, on Spotify now and Apple Music, as well as Amazon Music and other music streaming services. So you can go listen to it everywhere. It's dope. Also on SoundCloud and whatnot. So go follow me on whatever music streaming platform you listen to and listen to my shit. It's good. It's good. You know you love it. But yeah, that's been a stream for today, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Thanks. I already said that. Whatever. Thanks for watching, guys. I love all of y'all. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are beautiful. We'll see y'all next time, guys. Bye. Peace out, yo.